Chapter 438. He's mine. I'm definitely going to take this head. Let me do it. When these desolate hunters saw Immortal in the air and heard Immortal's shout, they were not afraid at all. Instead, they were very excited. After all, as long as they killed this kid, everyone would be able to obtain origin crystals. Moreover, the person who killed him would be able to obtain 100,000 origin crystals. This was definitely a reward that far exceeded their expectations. Moreover, they did not know Immortal and did not know how strong Immortal was. In their opinion, he should be at most a rank 10 desolate hunter. It was impossible for him to be a grand desolate master. After all, in the entire 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, there were no more than 10 grand desolate masters. As long as he was a grand desolate master, it was impossible for them not to know him. As long as he was not a grand desolate master, it would be easy to deal with him. Among them, there were quite a few rank 10 desolate hunters. They would be able to take down this kid no matter what. Immortal looked at the group of desolate hunters below who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth, and the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a satisfied smile. They were rushing to give him kill points. He could have more people like this. Soon, more than 100 desolate hunters rushed to Immortal's location. However, halfway through their flight, bang! A body with 5 meridians mismatched suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It was as if a red firework had exploded in the air. The surrounding desolate hunters heard the sound and turned their heads to look. When they saw it, they were all stunned. What happened? But before they could wrap their heads around it, the explosions rang out one after another. Bang! 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 The surrounding desolate hunters exploded into a cloud of blood mist as if dozens of fireworks had exploded at the same time. The difference was that the fireworks were colorful, but the blood mist that these people had exploded into was only one color. Seeing such a strange scene, the expressions of the desolate hunters changed greatly. Not good, he's a spirit psychic. Someone exclaimed. To be able to use this method to explode the bodies of desolate hunters below rank 5, he must be a spirit psychic. Just as they were talking, Immortal's draconic will moved. The blood mist that had exploded in the air no longer dispersed. Instead, it spiraled around his body. Soon, a blood tornado formed around his body. In the next moment, he flew towards the 2 level 10 desolate hunters. His speed was much faster than that of the 2 grade 10 desolate hunters. Seeing that they could not escape, the 2 level 10 desolate hunters hurriedly condensed their genetic weapons and tried to convert them into energy weapons. However, it was already too late. Immortal's blood tornado had already arrived in front of them. In an instant, the 2 of them were swallowed. Within the bloody tornado, every drop of blood was like a sharp blade as it spun at high speed. Chi 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 chi, the bodies of the 2 men were instantly torn apart. Their corpses continued to be torn apart. In the end, they turned into fresh blood droplets that merged into the blood tornado. When the others saw this, they were all horrified. Even if it was a stone, it would still make a sound when thrown into the water. These 2 were level 10 desolate hunters, but they didn't leave anything behind after entering the blood tornado. This was truly too terrifying. At this point, they had already forgotten about the reward they had been promised, and had even forgotten the reason why they had been hired to come here. There was only one thought in their minds: run. Many of them were even more regretful. If they had known this would happen, they would never have come to this place. No matter how much money they were offered, they would not have done it. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. It was already too late for them to regret. The speed of the blood tornado was far beyond their imagination. In just a minute, all of them had been sucked in. After everyone was sucked in, they silently disappeared into the blood tornado. Of course, some of them took out their wormhole teleportation devices. However, as soon as they took it out, boom boom, their wormhole teleportation devices seemed to have been subjected to some kind of terrifying pressure and exploded. Therefore, they could only face despair. Soon, these 100+ desolate hunters were all slaughtered by Immortal. At this point, in his mind, the kill points had increased by more than 100. Kill points, 5991000. On the island below, everyone's expression changed drastically. Whether it was the original employees of the 10th hunting island or the people who had come to the island for training, they were all terrified. They were all afraid that this terrifying murderous demon could kill them all with just a thought. Judging from the current situation, he really had the ability to do so. After all, those who came to the 10th hunting island for training were basically only level 10 desolate hunters. The 10th hunting island's owner was already in despair at this point. He should not have provoked this kid in the first place. However, who knew that this kid was actually so strong? Immortal looked down and said in a cold voice, "You're a benefactor." 10th hunting island's owner, die. Before his voice died away, his dragon consciousness was about to spread out and bombard the 10th hunting island's owner. However, at this moment, a voice was heard. "Stop." Before the voice died away, a figure had already flown up. Everyone turned to look at that person. It was a middle-aged man. He was dressed in black. There were faint dark golden patterns on his clothes. The patterns were shaped like fine scales. On the left side of his chest, there was a small dragon pattern embroidered on it. Immortal would not have paid any attention to his "stop." Usually, when he encountered such a situation, he would kill the target first. However, this person's attire at this moment attracted his attention. He quietly floated in the air and looked at that person. That person also looked at Immortal and sized up Immortal. That person introduced himself, "I am Long Changyuan of the dragon race." Immortal activated the demon dragon's eye and sized this person up again. Race, human, level 8 desolate hunter. Immortal knew that the so-called dragon race on this flaming land was actually not the real dragon race. Their ancestors had received favors from the dragon race and swore to be the dragon race's protectors for generations. As time passed, tens of thousands of years had passed. The descendants of these protectors became more and more arrogant. They did not know how they spread the rumors, but later on, they believed that they had the dragon race's bloodline in them, but it had not been awakened. Once it was awakened, they would be invincible in the entire flaming land. Therefore, they called themselves the dragon race. Immortal felt that this was a bit ridiculous. Moreover, such a ridiculous thing, who else could it be? This was the most ridiculous thing. That Long Changyuan said to Immortal, "Little brother, although I don't know what happened between you and the 10th hunting island's owner, as an experienced person, I advise you to be lenient where possible. Take a step back and you'll be at peace. Don't kill too many people." Immortal did not like this person to begin with. Hearing his words, he was even more annoyed. He asked coldly, "You know what I've been through, and you're telling me to take a step back." Chapter 439. When he heard Long Changyuan of the Dragon Clan advising him, Immortal was furious. "You know what I've been through, and you're advising me to take a step back. Has your wife been killed? Has your son been killed? Has your family been destroyed? Has your family of more than 300 people been killed?" Long Changyuan was slightly taken aback. He asked, "Have you been through all of this?" Immortal shook his head. "No." Long Changyuan. Immortal glanced at the 10th hunting island and continued. "I just want to tell you that you shouldn't advise others to be kind if you haven't experienced their pain. You know what they've been through, and you're advising them to be magnanimous." Long Changyuan felt like he had been tricked by this kid. He had advised him not to kill so many people out of goodwill, but he had tricked him. He, a member of the dragon race, had been tricked by a mere human. How preposterous. Thinking of this, he said coldly, "Kid, I was advising you out of goodwill, but you didn't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, I'll stop you from killing him today." Before he finished speaking, Long Wei suddenly spread out from his body and attacked Immortal. Immortal felt the Long Wei and couldn't help but be a little surprised. This so-called dragon race could really release Long Wei. He finally understood why so many people on the Flaming Dawn continent believed the false dragon's lies and deceit. However, this Long Wei was not even worth mentioning in front of Mo Shi. Moreover, he was a giant dragon, and was completely immune to Long Wei. Therefore, he sneered and warned, "Those who stop me will die. Are you sure you want to stop me?" When Long Changyuan saw that Mo Shi's expression didn't change at all under the dragon's might, he was also slightly surprised. Ever since he learned how to use dragon's might, most people's expressions would change drastically and they would panic in front of his dragon's might. Only a few people were not afraid of his Long Wei. However, people like that were far stronger than him. For example, a Grand Desolate Master. Could it be that this kid was a Grand Desolate Master? Thinking of this, he started to panic a little. However, the dragon clan had always been arrogant and refused to admit defeat. He pretended to be calm and snorted coldly. "If you kill me, you will be going against the entire dragon clan. You have to think carefully." Poof. Before he could finish his sentence, a tentacle had already pierced his heart. At the same time, Mo Shi's indifferent voice sounded, "Do I need to think about killing you?" Long Changyuan's words came to an abrupt end. He looked down at his chest. His chest had already been pierced by a blood-red tentacle. Fresh blood slowly dripped from the wound along the dragon-patterned robe. His gaze followed the blood-red tentacle that pierced his chest. It stretched all the way to the end of the tentacle. It was Mo Shi. This brat actually dared to make a move against him. A human actually dared to attack the noble dragon clan. One had to know that the dragon clan had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. In these tens of thousands of years, the dragon race had produced many Grand Desolate Master experts. Moreover, these Grand Desolate Master experts of the dragon clan were several times stronger than the human Grand Desolate Master experts. These Grand Desolate Master experts had made quite a name for themselves in these tens of thousands of years. Therefore, the dragon clan's foundation was something that the other powers on the continent could not compare to. Even now, no one knew how many Grand Desolate Master experts of the dragon clan were still alive. Maybe 20, 30, or 100. In short, the dragon clan was undoubtedly the #1 power on the continent. Even if they did not expand their power and had always guarded their small place. However, no power dared to look down on the dragon clan. Therefore, no matter who it was, after seeing the dragon clan, they could only be careful, afraid that they would anger the dragon clan. Even those Grand Desolate Masters were no exception. And now, a mere desolate hunter actually wanted to kill him. Blood had already flowed out of his mouth. His gaze was fixed on Mo Shi. Pausing after each word, "The dragon clan will not let you off." Poof. Before he finished speaking, the blood-red tentacle had already grown hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles in his body. And scattered from his body. His entire body seemed to have turned into a sea urchin with blood-red thorns all over his body. In the next moment, Mo Shi's tentacles retracted back into his body. "The dragon clan will not let me off. I'm afraid you don't know what a dragon-slaying saber is." On the 10th hunting island, everyone looked at Mo Shi, each and every one of them was shocked. This kid actually dared to kill the dragon clan. Did he eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts? Crazy, absolutely crazy. At the same time, they were all afraid of Mo Shi. This kid did not care about his life and even dared to kill the dragon clan. Who else would he not dare to kill? When the 10th hunting island owner saw that Mo Shi even dared to kill the dragon clan, his heart was filled with despair. This kid was not even afraid of the dragon clan's prestige. He was just a small island owner on the 10th hunting island. In front of this kid, he could forget about living. Just as this thought flashed through his mind. Boom! The body of the island owner of the 10th hunting island exploded. Along with him, the other tens of thousands of desolate hunters on the 10th hunting island also exploded. Only those who came to the 10th hunting island for training did not explode. Although Mo Shi wanted to collect kill points, he would not kill the innocent for no reason. Earlier, the dragon clan wanted to stop him, so he killed him. The others did not stop him, so he naturally would not kill them. After wiping out everyone on the 10th hunting island, Emosher's kill points had just broken through 700. It seemed like there was still a long way to go to collect kill points. Previously, Emosher was thinking of going to the 20th hunting island after wiping out the 10th hunting island. However, the appearance of the dragon clan had piqued his interest. So, he changed his mind and decided to pay a visit to the dragon clan first. The dragon clan was located in the Dragon Province, far away from the 16 provinces of Serene Cloud. It was the province with the most abundant resources among the 58 provinces of the entire Flamestone continent. Over 10,000 years ago, this place was not called the Dragon Province. However, the Dragon Clan discovered that this place was rich in resources, so they moved the entire Dragon Clan here. During these 10,000 years, the other forces were afraid of the Dragon Clan's strength, so they all moved away. In the end, the only major force left in this province was the Dragon Clan. So, this place was renamed the Dragon Province. Because of the existence of the Dragon Clan, the Dragon Province became the largest province on the entire Flamestone continent. When the people of the Dragon Province went to other provinces, they would feel that they were superior. Although Emosher had once obtained a teleportation device of the Dragon Clan, he did not use it. Only the Dragon Clan would have the teleportation device of the Dragon Clan. If he teleported there rashly, he would not be able to explain it at all. So, before he figured out the situation over there, he did not plan to make too much of it. He teleported all the way to the Dragon Province. With Emosher's speed of 1,000 kilometers per second, it took him 12 hours to teleport there. Chapter 440. Emosher teleported all the way to the Dragon Province. It took him 12 hours to reach there. According to his personality in the past, he would not go directly to the Dragon Clan. Before going to the Dragon Clan, he had to stay in the Dragon Province for a while and learn about the Dragon Clan through various aspects. But now, after Emosher transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon, his personality had changed. The risk factor in his personality had increased by a lot. And he had already learned about the Dragon Clan through Long Changyuan's memories. Plus, he had a powerful mutated desolate beast like the Sea Dragon clone as his trump card, so he obviously had nothing to worry about. Even if there was a powerful existence in the Dragon Clan that surpassed a third-level Grand Desolate Master, Emosher could still escape through teleportation. Taking a step back, even if the other party could also teleport, his speed would be faster than his own. Emosher could still hide in his miniature world. He did not believe that the other party could chase him into his miniature world. A few minutes later, Emosher had already teleported to the territory of the Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan occupied a valley. On the north and south sides of the valley were towering mountains. The mountains were very steep, almost straight up and down. There were waterfalls and springs on the mountains. A large river ran from east to west. On the walls of the mountains on both sides, there were many naturally formed caves and platforms. This was the base camp of the Dragon Clan. Emosher scanned over with his dragon sense. He was also a little surprised. It seemed like there were not many people in the valley. But the valley was more than 300 kilometers long. In such a long valley, there were more than 200,000 people hidden. Every single one of them was dressed in black with dark golden dragon scales embroidered on their clothes. When Emosher used the demon dragon's eye to observe the levels of these people, he discovered that there were close to 10,000 desolate hunters among them. There were also over 100 Grand Desolate Masters. Even Emosher could not help but gasp. No wonder they dared to call themselves the strongest faction on the Flaming Dawn continent. This was definitely not a joke. In the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, the strongest sect, the Celestial Gold sect, only had over 300 Desolate Hunters and 2 Grand Desolate Masters. But there were close to 10,000 Desolate Hunters and over 100 Grand Desolate Masters here. The difference in strength between them was not small at all. According to his investigation, the strongest existences in the dragon race were 12 level 3 Grand Desolate Masters. As for whether or not there were even more powerful existences hiding in a place that even Emosher's devil dragons I couldn't detect, Emosher didn't know. However, he was not afraid. In his mind, he said, "System, sign in." The system's voice quickly sounded, "Frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Dragon Valley of the Dragon Province, sign in reward, miniature world upgrade, Emosher." It leveled up just like that? He originally thought that many conditions would need to be met in order to upgrade his miniature world. For example, he had to reach the level of a Grand Desolate Master. Another example would be to collect enough dragon wills. He didn't think that the Dragon Valley would be upgraded so soon after he arrived. He continued to check in his mind. After the miniature world has been upgraded, its area has reached 10 square kilometers. It can also add any terrain or scenery according to the host's wishes. Emosher pondered for a moment upon hearing this. He said, "I think the scenery of this Dragon Valley is not bad. Can you shrink it according to the appearance of the Dragon Valley and copy it for me?" The system's voice sounded. "No problem." In the next moment, when Emosher's consciousness entered the miniature world, he found that the area of the miniature world was rapidly expanding. In just a few seconds, it had expanded to 100 square kilometers. At the border of the miniature world, there was chaos. In the east of the miniature world, the Dragon Valley appeared according to his wishes. This Dragon Valley looked almost exactly the same as the real Dragon Valley. Two towering mountains with a large river in the middle. On the mountain walls on both sides, waterfalls and springs flowed. In the mountains, yellow leaves were constantly falling. There were many platforms in the mountains. There were houses built on the platforms. Emosher couldn't help but be delighted. This way, the scenery of the miniature world would be much richer. In the future, when he brought them in, they could play here for a few days. Of course, the current miniature world was still too small. When he went to more places in the future, he might be able to copy more places into the miniature world. This place would become bigger and bigger, and the scenery would become richer and richer. Of course, when the miniature world became bigger, Emosher would be able to store more things in this city. If he wanted to, this 100 square kilometer area could be used to store things. However, if he did that, it would cause some damage to this place. His consciousness returned to reality from the miniature world. Emosher looked at the Dragon Valley, secretly looking forward to it. He already had a feeling that this trip to the Dragon Valley would be very rewarding. Emosher condensed a pair of wings with his energy and slowly flew towards the Dragon Valley above the river. After flying for less than a kilometer, two people also condensed a pair of wings with their energy and flew up. Emosher's wings were 5 meters wide and blood red. But these two people's wings were very gaudy. Both of them were golden yellow, which symbolized nobility. Also, there were some dragon patterns on their wings. These two people were both desolate hunters. "Stop!" one of them shouted. "Who are you? What do you want?" the other person asked. With a smile, Emosher said, "Oh, I heard that the Dragon Valley is here. I've always yearned for dragons, and I'm a fan of the dragon race. Therefore, I traveled thousands of miles from the distant Yuzhou to see the glory of the dragon race." The two people looked at each other. Yuzhou? The Yuzhou in the east, which is the most desolate place. Emosher nodded. That's right. The two people couldn't help but laugh. Yuzhou is probably tens of millions of kilometers away from here. Even if you use the public teleportation devices between the major provinces, it will take a few months. Also, the cost of using the public teleportation devices is quite high. Emosher smiled and shook his head. That's true, but in order to see the Dragon Valley with my own eyes, I don't have to worry about it. None of this is a problem. The two men said, not just anyone can enter the Dragon Valley. Even if you came here with sincerity, we can't let you in so easily. Have you heard of this saying, those who trespass into the Dragon Valley will be killed without mercy? Emosher nodded. Of course I've heard of it, but I didn't come empty-handed. I can offer some crystal source ores to the dragon race. The two people snorted coldly. Crystal source ores. How much can you give? The other person said, I don't want to discourage you, but the dragon race has plenty of crystal source ores. The two of us can each receive at least 300 crystal source ores every month. The crystal source ores you give us are not even enough to fill the gaps between our teeth. Mo sure pretended to be thinking. After a while, he said, I see. Then I'll give you 3,000 crystal source ores each, and you'll let me in. How about it? Chapter 441. 3,000. The two of them looked at each other, and a gulping sound came from their throats. The cultivation method of the dragon clan was different from that of ordinary people. Their ancestors had passed down a lot of giant dragon blood. They relied on absorbing the giant dragon blood to level up. However, even though the giant dragon blood had been diluted many times, it was still too violent for ordinary humans. Therefore, they needed to use crystal source stones to guide the energy in the dragon blood. Therefore, they would consume a lot of crystal source stones when they cultivated. The more crystal source stones they had, the more dragon blood they could absorb and the faster they could level up. The core disciples of the dragon clan could receive as many as thousands of crystal source stones every month. These two disciples who were like gatekeepers could only receive 100 crystal source stones every month. However, they said that they would receive 300 crystal source stones every month to save face. At this moment, they heard that Mo sure was going to give them 3,000 crystal source stones each. This was equivalent to several years of their income. The two of them were naturally excited. You have so many crystal source stones? One of them asked. Mo sure nodded. Of course. As he spoke, he moved his mind. 2 cloth bags appeared in front of him. In each cloth bag, there were 3,000 crystal source stones. The two of them were not surprised when they saw Mo sure produce cloth bags out of thin air. In the Dragon Clan, this kind of wormhole teleportation technology had long been very mature. Things like telekinesis were very common. The two of them opened the cloth bags and saw that the cloth bags were full of crystal source stones. The two of them confirmed that the 2 bags of crystal source stones were real. Although they did not count, they estimated that there were definitely more than 2,000 crystal source stones inside. Their hearts began to thump violently. With so many origin crystals, it would be enough for both of them to level up within a month. After a moment, the two of them suppressed the excitement in their hearts. One of them said, Since you are so sincere about visiting the Dragon Valley, it would be unreasonable of us to not let you in. However, after you enter, you must keep a low profile. Don't expose your identity as an outsider. Otherwise, anyone who trespasses into the Dragon Clan will be killed without mercy, understand? Mo sure nodded. Yes. The other person said in a threatening tone, We'll take a proper inventory later. If there's even a single one of your source crystals missing, we'll throw you out. Mo sure shook his head. Of course not. One of them asked Mo sure, name? Mo sure said, Mo sure, Mo, as in, emotionless killer, sure, as in, full release. Another person took out a device and keyed in Mo sure's name. Then, he said to Mo sure, remember, you will be called Long Sure from now on. Hold out your right hand. Mo sure was puzzled. Why? One of them said, I told you to stretch out your hand, so stretch it out. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Mo sure stretched out his right hand. One of them took out something that looked like an electronic thermometer and placed it on Mo sure's wrist. Mo sure felt a sharp pain on his wrist, and then a dragon tattoo the size of a fingernail appeared. The person scanned the tattoo with the device, and Mo sure's identity information appeared: frowny face, name, Long Sure, race, dragon, level 3 desolate hunter. One of them said to Mo sure, in the future, if anyone asks, just say that you're a dragon. Don't waste any more time. We'll give you 3 days to visit. Once you're done, leave immediately and don't cause any trouble. Otherwise, we'll find you and throw you out, understand? Mo sure nodded again. Yes. The two people waved their hands and let Emosure enter. Emosure said to the two of them, "Thank you." He hurriedly entered the dragon clan. The two men watched Emosure's back disappear behind a waterfall. One of them asked, "What's the matter?" One of them asked, "There won't be any problems, right?" The other person laughed and said, "Causing trouble in our dragon clan? You're courting death. Even if there's really something wrong with him, how much trouble can a mere level 3 desolate hunter cause? Besides, when I put the dragon mark on him just now, I also implanted a tracker. With this tracker, we'll know where he is at any time. As long as we check the surveillance footage, we'll know what he's doing." "You're smart." "What are you talking about? Is this called smart? This is called cunning." "Yes, you're cunning. Cut the crap. Let's go back and refine these crystal source stones and try to break through as soon as possible." At the same time, Emosure had turned around from the waterfall, and there was a cave. This cave didn't extend into the belly of the mountain. Instead, it passed through a naturally formed wall. On the other side was a platform. The platform was very large, about the size of hundreds of football fields. On this platform, there were hundreds of houses. There were thousands of people living here. Emosure couldn't help but feel a little envious. Living in such a valley, there was a huge waterfall next to it. Listening to the sound of the waterfall every night should make one sleep soundly. Emosure plundered the memories of a few people and flipped through them for a moment. From these people's memories, he knew that the Dragon Valley would hold a competition in more than 10 days. There was only one prize for the champion, the incomplete dragon vein. Emosure couldn't help but feel happy. It seemed that he had come at the right time. In the eyes of these dragons, although the incomplete dragon vein was not complete, with the dragon vein by their side, cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. Of course, such a good thing couldn't be used by people with ordinary talent. Instead, it was reserved for those prodigies. There were many prodigies in the dragon tribe. There were more than 200,000 people in the dragon tribe, and more than 200 of them could be called prodigies. Therefore, the dragon tribe decided to hold a competition for these prodigies to participate in. In the end, whoever won the championship would get the incomplete dragon vein. Of course, Emosure couldn't participate in the competition. That would take time and effort. Moreover, if he participated in the competition, he would attract too much attention and easily expose his true identity. Therefore, his idea was very simple. First, he would think of a way to find out where the dragon vein was, then use his teleportation skill to steal it. Wasn't it simple? From these people's memories, Emosure knew that the dragon vein was definitely with the dragon tribe leader. It would be difficult to steal it out for the time being. He could only wait for the dragon tribe prodigies to decide the champion. After obtaining the dragon vein, Emosure would steal the dragon vein from the so-called champion. In the next few days, Emosure kept a low profile. Every day, other than touring the dragon tribe, he did nothing else. There were 200,000 people in the dragon tribe, and it was normal for people not to know each other. Therefore, he didn't attract the attention of outsiders. The two guards from before were a little worried at first, afraid that Emosure would cause trouble here. But for 5 days in a row, the two guards saw that Emosure was just playing and didn't have any intention of causing trouble. Only then did they feel relieved and continue to refine those crystal source stones. Chapter 442. Emosure went on a scenic tour in the Dragon Clan for a full 10 days. In these 10 days, other than the Dragon Clan's forbidden area, he went to all the other places. However, what he didn't know was that there were 2 spiritual psyche masters hiding in the shadows of the Dragon Clan. They had already seen his every move. There were a total of 10 spiritual psychics in the Dragon tribe. These 2 were the strongest among them. Their spiritual senses had all reached level 8. 2 level 8 spiritual psychics. In the outside world, it was rare to even see a level 1 spiritual psychic. But the Dragon tribe had 2 level 8 spiritual psychics. This showed how powerful the Dragon tribe was. Of course, These two level 8 spiritual psychics were the hidden elites of the dragon tribe. Even in the dragon tribe, there were very few people who knew of their existence. The two of them used their spiritual senses to explore the entire Dragon Valley every day, guarding the safety of the Dragon Valley. So when Immortal appeared at the entrance of the Dragon Valley, they already knew that Immortal had disguised himself as a member of the Dragon tribe and sneaked into the Dragon Valley. The reason why they did not make a move was because they wanted to know what Immortal was up to. At this time, it was the last night before the Dragon tribe's prodigy battle. The entire Dragon Valley was in a jubilant mood. The battle between 100 prodigies of the Dragon tribe was definitely a rare event for the Dragon tribe. The two level 8 spiritual psychics of the Dragon tribe were using their spiritual senses to cover a radius of a few hundred kilometers. Dragon Shirsan, the battle will start tomorrow. To ensure the safety of the Dragon Valley, should we get rid of this kid? The spiritual psychic called Dragon Shirsan said, no need. This kid only has so little strength. Our Dragon Valley can just send a 5th level desolate hunter to kill him. You're right. But the reward this time is the Dragon Vein. It's a big deal. We can't afford to make any mistakes. Dragon Shirsan shook her head. It's called the Dragon Vein, but it's actually an incomplete one. Other than helping with cultivation, it has no other use. You're right. But we still have to be careful. Dragon Shirsan said, don't worry. Don't we have dragon guards? There are other spiritual psychics. If they can't even handle such a small matter, then they don't deserve to be dragon guards and dragon spiritualists. The other spiritual psyche master listened and thought for a moment before finally nodding. You're right. It seems that I was overthinking things. That morning, the largest waterfall in the Dragon Valley was over 100 meters wide. The 100-meter wide waterfall was surrounded by water vapor. The sun was just shining on the waterfall. The mist around the waterfall formed an arched rainbow under the sunlight. Beside the waterfall was the largest circular plaza in the Dragon Valley. The radius of the circular plaza was about 2 kilometers. Around the circular plaza stood 10 giant dragon statues. Each of the dragon statues was 100 meters long. This square was called Giant Dragon Square. Usually, it was the place where the dragon clan's bullets practiced their martial arts. And today, this huge square had become a specialized arena. Around the arena, there were floating spectator stands. These spectator stands were usually hidden underground and did not take up much space. When there was a fight, the spectator stands would be raised using the geomagnetic reaction. The audience sat on the floating stands and had a great view. However, it did not affect the passage of the people on the ground. The floating stands here surrounded the entire square. They could accommodate more than 100,000 spectators. At this time, the stands were already filled with people. Immortal was also sitting on the stands with an excited look on his face. After all, the people around him were very excited. If he appeared to be very calm, it would easily arouse the suspicion of others. Not long after, under the auspices of an elder of the Dragon clan, 2 prodigies took the lead to appear. These 2 prodigies were both below the age of 30. And their strength was that of a level 5 desolate hunter. They had become level 5 desolate hunters before the age of 30. Such talent was indeed hard to come by. Then, a protective light shield rose around the spectator stands. The entire protective light shield was like a huge bowl that was upside down in the entire square. This light shield was naturally to prevent the aftershocks of their battle from spreading out and injuring others or destroying the surrounding buildings. The people of the Dragon clan never talked much nonsense. The presiding elder only said a few words, and the battle had already begun. The battle between the two was really exciting. Because they were of the same level, their battle experience was similar, so the two could be said to be evenly matched. Immortal observed the battle between the two. He could clearly see that their combat prowess was much higher than that of an ordinary 5th-rank desolate hunter. With their strength, if they went to the outside world, it would not be a problem for them to defeat other level 5 desolate hunters. It seemed that although the dragon clan was arrogant, they really did have the ability. This made Emosure more cautious. The two strongest of the dragon clan were level 3 Desolate Masters. However, their battle strength was different from that of a level 3 Desolate Master in the outside world. Of course, the strength of the Sea Dragon clone was also different from that of a level 3 Desolate Master in the outside world. It was more than 10 times stronger. With the strength of the Sea Dragon clone, it should not have any difficulty in challenging a level 4 Desolate Master. At this time, the battle below had entered a white-hot stage. The two had each used their final trump cards. Bursts of flames and continuous roars. Finally, after another 2 minutes, the outcome was decided. However, the winner could be said to have won by a miserable margin. In his current state, his condition would be greatly reduced when he participated in the second round of the competition tomorrow. In the entire day, Emosure and company watched 100 battles. The surrounding spectators were very excited. I haven't seen such a battle in a long time. Yes, it's definitely the most exciting battle I've seen in recent years. That's right. Whoever becomes the champion will be able to obtain the Dragon Vein. That's a Dragon Vein. With the Dragon Vein, cultivation will be twice the result with half the effort. Maybe 1 year is enough for us to cultivate for 10 years. You're not exaggerating enough. 10 years for us to cultivate for 10 years, 1 month is enough for him. These people were watching the fun, but Emosure had a deeper understanding of the Dragon Clan's battle strength through this day's battle. With his current strength, if he really became enemies with the Dragon Clan, he would not be able to destroy them. However, it would not be difficult for him to escape from here. On the second day, there were only 100 geniuses left. They continued to fight. In the end, the top 50 were decided. Among these 50 geniuses, there were 3 who were the strongest. One was called Long Shuang, one was Long Feng, and one was Long Yun. These 3 were all under the age of 30 and had already become level 10 Desolate Masters. They were only 1 step away from becoming Grand Desolate Masters. It was impossible to see a level 10 Desolate Master under the age of 30 in other places in the Flaming Origin continent. It was clear that the Dragon Clan was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 443. The 3 strongest prodigies of the Dragon Clan, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun. They had all become level 10 Desolate Hunters. The 3 of them had won easily in the competition. Long Shuang had Ice Attribute Energy. Long Feng had Wind Attribute Energy. Long Yun could cause changes in the weather. These 3 were geniuses that might not appear in 100 years in the Dragon Clan. But now, they had all appeared at the same time. This made the elders of the Dragon Clan overjoyed. With the 3 of them, the Dragon Clan would shake the entire Flaming Continent. In the final battle of the top 3, Long Shuang defeated Feng Yun in one fell swoop due to the uniqueness of the ice attribute and won the championship. In the end, the Patriarch, Lord Long, personally awarded the prize. Lord Long had a long black beard that was 2 feet long. Just by sitting there, his entire body was exuding a domineering aura. At this moment, he was sitting on the high platform on the east side of the square. The champion, Long Shuang, walked up the high platform step by step under the gazes of more than 100,000 people. Arriving in front of Long Shuang, he respectfully knelt on the ground and bowed. He said loudly, "Long Shuang greets the Patriarch." The Patriarch of the Dragon Clan, Lord Long, smiled and nodded slightly. But even when he smiled, he was still domineering, causing Long Shuang to not even dare to raise his head. Lord Long said to the Grand Elder beside him, "Grand Elder, give it to me." The Grand Elder beside him hurriedly replied respectfully, "Yes." As he spoke, he took out a dragon vein that was more than a foot long from a box that looked like a safe. The moment Emosure saw the dragon vein, he secretly activated the demonic dragon's eye to appraise the authenticity of the dragon vein. After the blood dragon's eye was upgraded to the demonic dragon's eye, it could appraise the authenticity of items. Soon, the attributes of this item appeared in Emosure's mind. Frowny face item, dragon vein, attribute, incomplete dragon vein. After being repaired, it can be fused into the body and one can have a true dragon body. Mo nodded secretly. It was indeed a real dragon vein. However, the 4 words, true dragon body, made him slightly puzzled. He asked in his heart, am I not already a real dragon? What is a true dragon body? The system's voice replied, frowny face, not all dragons possess the true dragon body. The colossal dragon realm was divided into colossal dragon, evolved colossal dragon, super evolved colossal dragon, ancient colossal dragon, primordial ancestral dragon, and dragon god. Ordinary dragons, no matter how talented they were, could only evolve into super evolved dragons at most, and could not advance any further. Only by fusing with the dragon bloodline can one continue to evolve. Hearing this, Mo was secretly delighted. Now that there was a chance to mend the dragon veins, he could save himself the trouble in the future. The system continued. Moreover, if the dragon bloodline in the body mutates, different potentials can be activated and different abilities can be obtained. The fire dragon's dragon vein mutated and might give birth to the thunder dragon's lightning power. The ice dragon's dragon vein mutated and might give birth to the wind dragon's ability. When Mo heard the system's words, he was secretly looking forward to it. Strictly speaking, his current attribute was only the fire attribute. As for the ice dragon's breath, it was converted from the fire attribute energy in his body. If his dragon vein mutated in the future and gave birth to another attribute, it would be of great help to his combat power. If that was the case, he was determined to obtain this incomplete dragon vein. Of course, there were dozens of Grand Desolate Masters around him. Their great elder and clan leader had even reached level 3 Grand Desolate Master. Even if he had the Azure Dragon clone, he might not be able to gain any benefits. Therefore, he had to wait a little longer. When the sun set in the west, the martial arts competition finally came to an end. Everyone felt that it had not been enough. This year's martial arts battle assembly was the most exciting martial arts battle assembly in the last 100 years. Especially the battle between Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun. It was truly exciting. A martial arts competition like this would probably not happen again in 1,000 years. Therefore, that night, when night fell, the Dragon Valley was brightly lit. People were holding a ball to celebrate the success of this martial arts competition. Mo still did not make a move that night. This was because he had tried to plunder the memories of the Dragon Clan's clan leader. He did not expect to succeed on his first try. Through the memories of the Dragon Clan's clan leader, he knew that he had been discovered. Now, the 2 level 8 spirit reader masters of the Dragon Clan and their clan leader knew of the existence of an outsider like him. The clan leader had already given the order for the other spirit reader masters, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun to keep an eye on him. The moment he made any movements, they would immediately take him down. Furthermore, this was treated as a test for the 3 geniuses, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun. If they could find a way to take him down and easily find out his goal, then the 3 of them would pass. Of course, torture didn't count. Mo forced a smile inwardly. He had actually been used as a target for their assessment. However, at the same time, this also reminded Mo of when he was on Earth. When he was on Earth, he was treated as prey. In the end, he, the prey, killed the hunter and even came to the hunter's world. In the hunter's world, he continued to ride the wind and waves. He had already done such a thing once. To him, it was a walk in the park. That night, Mo did not make a move. Through plundering the memories of the 3 of them, he knew that these fellows had some doubts. They had originally thought that their target was the dragon vein, so they had actually set up a trap that night and waited for him to fall into it. In the end, he did not make a move. In the next few days, they would still set up a trap and wait for Mo every night. After all, in their opinion, a stranger who appeared in the Dragon Valley at this point in time must be here for the dragon vein. They just didn't know who it was that dared to provoke the Dragon Clan. Therefore, they had to set up a trap and slowly investigate. And on this day, Mo knew from these fellows' memories that they would set up a trap every night and wait for him to fall into it. Mo sure had an idea. Since you guys have set up a trap for me, I might as well beat you at your own game. Thinking of this, Mo sure condensed a doppelganger in the afternoon of the same day. He ordered his clone to steal the dragon vein that night, while his main body had already activated the concealment and disguise skill. He turned into a rock and hid beside the waterfall, secretly observing. Around 3:00 that night, the clone used the disguise skill to sneak to Long Shuang's residence. At this time, in the house, after Long Shuang obtained the dragon vein, she had cultivated for a few days and was indeed tired. She was sleeping soundly. Mo Shi's clone sneaked into the house. Soon, he found the dragon vein locked in the safe at Long Shuang's bedside. Using a small decoding device, Mo Shi's doppelganger easily opened the safe. He reached out to take the dragon vein. However, at this moment, Kacha, a handcuff-like thing was placed on the right hand of Mo Shi's clone. With a click, it closed. Chapter 444. Mo Shi's doppelganger had just put his hand into the safe when he heard a click sound. Something that looked like a handcuff suddenly popped out. With a crack, it closed around Mo Shi's clone's wrist. Seeing this, Mo Shi's clone hurriedly tried to break free. However, more than 10 tiny needles suddenly popped out from the inner circle of that thing and pierced into the clone's wrist. He injected something into Mo Shi's clone's wrist. Mo Shi's clone immediately felt as if he had lost all his strength. Even if he wanted to use his energy to break free from the handcuffs, it was useless. He was simply unable to activate the energy in his body. At this moment, the lights in the room suddenly lit up. Long Shuang had already sat up. With a smile on his face, he looked at Mo Shi's clone. The door opened, and Long Feng and Long Yun walked in with smiles on their faces. Long Shuang laughed out loud. "Junior brother Feng, your move is indeed effective. You're still the smart one." Long Feng shook his head, and continued to laugh. "Senior brother Shuang, he is too stupid. Do you really think that our dragon clan is a free market that you can enter and leave as you please?" Long Yun said, "Since we've caught him, then it's time for our hallucinogens to come in handy." As he spoke, he pressed down on Mo Shi's clone's shoulder, and a wave of energy was injected into Mo Shi's clone's body. The energy in Mo Shi's clone's body was immediately completely suppressed. Long Feng took out a syringe, grabbed Mo Shi's clone's arm, and injected it. As long as this hallucinogen was injected into the target's body, it would cause the target's brain to produce illusions. In this illusion, one would speak the truth. After 5 minutes, Long Shuang said, "It's about time." Then he asked, "Who exactly are you?" Mo Shi's clone closed his eyes, immersed in the illusion. With an intoxicated look, he said with a silly smile, "My name is Mo Shi." Long Shuang asked again, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Yuzhou." Long Feng curled his lips, "That barren land? Who sent you? What is your purpose?" Mo Shi's clone replied, no one sent me. I admire the dragon race a lot, so I traveled thousands of miles to visit the dragon race. This is my goal." Shuang, Feng, and Yun looked at each other. Long Yun asked again, "Tell me honestly, what is your purpose in coming to our dragon clan?" Mo Shi's doppelganger was still in a daze as he replied, "I've always liked giant dragons since I was young, and I've always admired the dragon race. That's why I've come here on a pilgrimage." Long Yun frowned and cursed, F***ck. Long Feng also shook his head slightly. Why isn't it working? Did he really come all the way from Yuzhou province just for the so-called pilgrimage? Long Yun asked, "What do we do now?" Long Shuang pondered for a moment, then said, "This medicine was personally concocted by me, there can't be any problems. How about this, lock him up first, then we'll slowly think of a way." Long Feng and Long Yun could only nod, that's the only way. He had thought that as long as he caught this fellow and injected the hallucinogenic injection, he would be able to settle this matter. He didn't expect it to be so troublesome. Very quickly, the three of them brought Immortal away from here and locked him in a house beside the waterfall. There were people guarding the house. When Immortal saw this, he was secretly happy. He had completed the first step. Not long after, the door opened again. A woman wearing clothes that saved a lot of fabric walked in. This woman had a hot figure and a curvy figure. The places that should be fat were fat, and the places that should be thin were thin. She was truly a beauty of the world. With a charming smile on her face, she said to Immortal's clone, "Little handsome brother, why are you here alone? Is it lonely for you to leave your home and come to the dragon clan alone? Do you want your sister to talk to you and relieve your boredom?" As he spoke, he leaned towards Immortal's clone. When Immortal saw this, he was speechless. If he had known that there would be such an interrogation, his main body would have gone over. But now, this clone had taken advantage of him. That night, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun used all sorts of methods to torment Immortal's clone for the entire night. In the end, they didn't get any results. The next morning, the three of them dragged their exhausted bodies back to their respective residences. After Long Feng and Long Yun returned to their residences, they fell asleep. In order to catch this brat, they hadn't slept well these past few days. They hadn't slept for another night, so they were very sleepy. Now that they knew that this brat's motives weren't pure, they had caught him. They could finally have a good night's sleep. As for how to get that brat to explain himself, he would wait until they woke up. However, after Long Shuang returned to his residence, he did not rest. He had just obtained the dragon vein, and his heart was still warm. Now that he had some time, he could take the opportunity to cultivate. After cultivating for a full 3 hours, he finally put the dragon vein into the safe. After locking the safe at the head of the bed, he lay down on the bed and fell asleep in satisfaction. After another hour or so, Immortal waited for him to fall into a deep sleep before finally taking action. He had already used his camouflage concealment skill to hide in Long Shuang's room. At this moment, he quietly came to the head of the bed and reached out to grab the insurance cream. The insurance cream had a sensor. If anyone other than Long Shuang touched the safe, it would trigger an alarm. However, this device had long been destroyed by Immortal's dragon will. However, just as he obtained the safe, a figure suddenly appeared behind him without a sound. Immortal sensed the appearance of this figure and thought to himself, "Not good." He hurriedly tried to use teleportation to escape. A single teleportation was 1,000 kilometers away. At that time, no matter how strong the Dragon Clan's experts were, they wouldn't be able to catch up to him. However, when he used the Dragon's Shadow Step, he found that he couldn't take this step at all. It was as if there was some kind of invisible imprisonment around the room. His Dragon's Shadow Step couldn't be used at all. Immortal was a little flustered. He quickly turned his head around. The person behind him looked at Immortal with a smile and said indifferently, "Don't struggle in vain. Since you've been caught by me, do you still want to run?" Immortal had just used the Blood Dragon's Eye to see. This person was actually a level 3 Desolate Hunter. It was equivalent to the Sea Dragon clone. This person was the Dragon Clan's Grand Elder. Immortal thought to himself, "Not good." He wasn't afraid of this person. He was afraid of being held back by this person. Once he was held back by him, the other experts of the Dragon Clan would rush over. At that time, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Thinking of this, he moved his mind. The next moment, his figure disappeared from the room. Huh? The Grand Elder originally thought that capturing Immortal was a sure thing. After all, he was a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. If he couldn't even catch a level 3 Desolate Hunter who was a level lower than him, it would be too embarrassing. However, the truth was that it was really embarrassing. That kid really disappeared in front of his eyes. He could feel that that guy didn't use teleportation to disappear, nor did he use a wormhole teleportation device. He had already locked down this room. It was impossible for him to use a teleportation skill or a device to disappear. Chapter 445. Before the Great Elder came, he had already ordered someone to tamper with this room. It was impossible to use teleportation or other teleportation devices to leave this room. However, he never expected that this fellow would actually disappear right under his nose just like that. This caused the Great Elder to be both surprised and angry. A mere level 3 desolate hunter had actually escaped right under his nose. This was simply preposterous. Get the spirit reader here, quick! He let out an explosive roar. At this moment, Long Shuang had also been awakened. The first thing he did was to turn his head to look at the safe beside him. However, the safe had already disappeared. Long Shuang's shock was no small matter. Seeing that the Great Elder was in his room, he hurriedly stood up and asked, "Great Elder, the Great Elder said, your dragon vein was stolen by that brat." When Long Shuang heard this, he could not believe it. This. Impossible, that brat is still locked up. How? The Great Elder cursed, what we caught before was only that brat's clone. We were all deceived by him. When Long Shuang heard this, it was as if a bolt from the blue had struck him. One had to know that with the dragon vein, he would have greater potential than the other geniuses. Even the next clan leader of the dragon clan was already in sight. Without the dragon vein, his cultivation speed would be much slower. Moreover, the path of cultivation was very long. Without the help of the dragon vein, who knew if other geniuses would catch up or even surpass him? At that time, the position of patriarch would be in jeopardy. Thinking of this, he suddenly jumped down from the bed. He hurriedly said, "Great Elder, where did that guy go? Let's chase after him." The Great Elder frowned. "I've cast a spatial imprisonment spell on your room. It's very difficult for him to escape. So the biggest possibility is that he's still in the room. However, he can use some kind of invisibility skill, so we can't find him for the time being." Long Shuang hurriedly looked around, but he did not find Immortal. While they were talking, a spirit reader had already walked in. This spirit reader was one of the 2 level 8 spirit readers in the dragon clan. His hair was almost all gone, and only a few sparse strands of beard were left. At this moment, he felt a little regretful. Originally, he thought that the other spirit readers in the clan would be able to discover that kid and control his every move. Therefore, the 2 level 8 spiritual readers did not pay any attention to this place. Unexpectedly, that kid still managed to steal the dragon vein. What the hell was this bunch of trash doing? At the same time, he spread out his spiritual thoughts. First, they searched for Immortal within a 200-kilometer radius. After a fruitless search, he used his spiritual senses to explore the entire house. He checked the people in and out of the house. He still couldn't find Immortal. His eyebrows, which had almost no eyebrows, were tightly knitted together as he slowly shook his head. The First Elder's heart sank when he saw this. In fact, he had already used thermal imaging, infrared scanning, laser scanning, life detector, and many other detection methods to explore this place. There was no discovery at all. Now, even a level 8 spiritual psyche master's spiritual thoughts could not detect it. Could it be that the kid had already escaped? How was this possible? How did he break through the shackles? Long Shuang was dumbfounded. He had just obtained the dragon vein, and he hadn't even cultivated much before the dragon vein was stolen. "That kid, when I find you, I'll definitely kill you." Seeing that he couldn't find anything, the First Elder immediately ordered, "Seal off the entire Dragon Valley and let all the spirit readers investigate the Dragon Valley. All the Dragon Clan disciples, put down the work in your hands and search the Dragon Valley inch by inch. I don't believe that he can really disappear from the face of the earth." "Yes." The few people outside the door replied. At the same time, the First Elder brought his men to the place where Immortal's clone was imprisoned. However, he discovered that there was no longer Immortal's clone. There was only a pile of meat paste. When Long Shuang saw this, he was filled with regret. At this time, Immortal had already hidden in his miniature world. His miniature world was equivalent to a space independent of the world. Other people's telekinesis, infrared scanning, radar detection, and other methods could not affect his miniature world. The space imprisonment technique could not affect his miniature world at all. Emosure had just discovered that the person behind him was a level 3 Great Desolate Master and that he could not escape with his teleportation, so he immediately hid in there. However, it was easy to hide in, but how to get out was the biggest problem. At this moment, there were so many experts looking for him outside. If he really went out, he would probably be taken down in minutes. Emosure shook his head helplessly. Looking at the beautiful scenery in the miniature world, he shook his head helplessly. Since he couldn't get out, he had to think of a way to fuse with the dragon vein first. Thinking of this, he took out the dragon vein that he had obtained first. This was formed from the fusion of 2 dragon veins. It was about half a meter long, like the spine of some animal. Emosure took out the dragon vein that he had just obtained. The moment this dragon vein appeared, the 2 dragon veins in Emosure's hand seemed to have a gravitational force as they approached each other. Emosure loosened his grip. The 2 dragon veins instantly stuck together. At the same time, the gap between the 2 dragon veins was rapidly disappearing. These 2 dragon veins began to fuse together at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, a faint light appeared above the 2 dragon veins. In a short 5 minutes, the gap between the 2 dragon veins completely disappeared, they fused into a complete dragon vein. This dragon vein was like the complete spine of some creature. It looked a little scary. But at this moment, Emosure felt a strange sense of familiarity. He felt that this complete dragon vein seemed to contain some kind of huge power. That power was not the power of the physical body, nor was it the power of energy. It was a kind of power that could not be described clearly, but he could feel it. It was a kind of power that every dragon longed to have. When this thing appeared, Emosure's heart started to beat wildly. He asked the system in his mind, "How do I fuse with the dragon vein?" The system's voice quickly sounded, "Frowny face, as long as you drip a few drops of blood on the dragon vein, your body will automatically fuse with the dragon vein." Emosure nodded and cut the fingertip of his right hand. He dripped a few drops of blood on the dragon vein. Immediately, the dragon vein began to change rapidly. The surface of the sky began to quickly turn blood red, as if it was dyed red by blood. A moment later, some meat actually grew on the blood-red dragon vein. Thin and long tentacles grew out of the flesh. These tentacles seemed to be alive and stretched towards Emosure's right hand. Chapter 446. Emosure did not expect that the dragon vein, which originally looked like a dried-up spine, could actually grow flesh and blood. And on this flesh and blood, dozens of tentacles grew out. Its tentacles kept reaching towards Emosure's right hand. Soon, it climbed onto Emosure's right hand. Then, it climbed onto Emosure's body. Finally, it climbed onto Emosure's back. In the next moment, the tentacles on the dragon vein were like sharp blades. They suddenly pierced into Emosure's back. Then, they separated to both sides. Emosure's back was torn apart. Emosure screamed miserably. He did not expect that the fusion of the dragon vein would be so painful. He asked in his mind, "System, is this okay?" The system's voice replied, "Frowny face, since ancient times, the dragon vein has been fused in this way." Emosure wanted to say something, but the tentacles on the dragon vein had already torn open the muscle tissue under his skin. However, it only tore open Emosure's muscle tissue and did not hurt Emosure's bones. Perhaps it was under the stimulation of this intense pain, Emosure's body seemed to have begun to change involuntarily. In just a few seconds, he transformed into a giant dragon. However, even in the giant dragon form, the wound on his back was still there. At this moment, the dragon vein followed the wound and entered Emosure's back. Then, it climbed onto Emosure's spine. It began to fuse with Emosure's spine. The speed of the fusion was not fast. Instead, it was extremely slow. The fusion of the dragon vein was a very long process. Generally speaking, those particularly talented giant dragons were born with dragon veins in their bodies. Giant dragons without dragon veins would have to endure a long and intense pain if they wanted to fuse with dragon veins. And at this moment, Emosure was enduring such pain. The tentacles on the dragon vein were like hundreds and thousands of steel needles that were more than a foot long, piercing directly into Emosure's spine. Something was injected into Emosure's spine. During the injection, Emosure felt his mind go blank. The pain was so intense that he almost fainted. It was so painful that he kept flapping his wings. The ground beneath his claws had been scratched into 4 large pits by his dragon claws. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind: give up on the fusion. This kind of pain was completely inhuman. In this kind of pain, anyone would feel that it was better to die than to live in such pain. If such a thought had only flashed through his mind, it would have been fine. If he had such thoughts for a long time and relaxed his willpower, then the final result would be the failure of the fusion and a painful death. Fortunately, this thought only appeared in Emosure's mind for a moment. He had started out on Earth as a small fry in a corpse farm. Along the way, he had experienced countless difficulties and dangers. Could it be that he died because he couldn't bear the pain? I can't accept this. Happy is still waiting for me to go back. If I die here now, just how sad would Happy be? Therefore, I must go back. Emosure's heart was filled with a tenacious fighting spirit. He wanted to live. He had to live. Sometimes, between life and death, there was only this thought. If he felt that living was too painful and tiring, then it was very likely that he would give up because of this and never be able to live again. Fortunately, Emosure persevered. Moreover, after enduring the first wave of pain, the following pain was easy to endure. Although the pain still made him grimace, it was not as intense as the first wave. Emosure gritted his teeth and let out a painful dragon roar. Roar! Under this dragon roar, all the trees in the miniature world were shaking. All the houses seemed to have swayed a few times. The waterfall of the Dragon Valley seemed to have stopped for a moment. In this kind of pain, time passed second by second. Emosure always experienced what it meant to live like a year. He was really counting the seconds. Just like this, the pain lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. During these 3 days and 3 nights, Emosure seemed to have slowly lost consciousness many times. His brain was in a mess. Slowly, he seemed to be unable to feel or hear anything. However, even so, the thought of living in his mind did not decrease in the slightest. After 3 days and 3 nights, the wound on his back had completely healed. It was also at this moment that the pain on his body completely disappeared. His body seemed to have relaxed a lot at this moment. He hurriedly turned around and looked at his back. Sure enough, the scales had already covered it, and there was no wound. He focused on feeling his body. The dragon vein had already fused with his spine. Moreover, at this moment, the blood in his body was flowing smoothly, and the energy was circulating extremely smoothly. On the surface, there did not seem to be any changes, but in Emosure's senses, there was a tremendous change. In the past, although he was a giant dragon, his body also had giant dragon blood. But that blood was the blood of giant dragons that he had consumed. His body could not truly produce giant dragon blood. But now, after fusing with the dragon vein, his body could truly produce giant dragon blood. It was also at this moment that he truly became a giant dragon. And at this moment, Emosure discovered that his body length had also increased by a lot. It was only 130 meters. And now, his body length had already reached 150 meters. Seeing his body length, Emosure was stunned. Then, he hurriedly looked at the attributes in his mind: frowny face, name, Emosure, level, rank 5 bloodthirsty demon dragon, ability, rank 5. Emosure's heart could not help but beat wildly. Previously, he was only a rank 3 bloodthirsty demon dragon. After fusing with the dragon vein, he actually directly advanced to rank 5. He couldn't help but feel excited. With one fusion, he advanced 2 ranks in a row. This could be. Emosure asked in his mind again, "System, has my dragon vein mutated?" The system replied, "The dragon vein that has just been fused will not mutate. And only after reaching the level of an evolved giant dragon will there be a change." Oh. Emosure nodded. However, he could feel that after fusing with the dragon vein, his body's strength was not inferior to that of a Grand Desolate Master. It was no exaggeration to say that the current him, in his dragon form, could challenge a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. And after fusing with the dragon vein, even in his human form, he could challenge a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. A level 5 Desolate Hunter could challenge a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. In the eyes of others, this was simply a fool's dream. But in fact, Emosure could really do it. Moreover, this was not Emosure's full strength. With a thought, he summoned the Sea Dragon clone. At this moment, the Sea Dragon clone's body length had already reached more than 1,500 meters. Chapter 447. After fusing with the dragon vein, Emosure's level rose by 2 levels. But it was obvious that rising 2 levels in a row was only the most ordinary benefit that the dragon vein brought him. The benefits brought to him by the dragon vein would only be revealed in the future. At the same time, Emosure summoned the Sea Dragon clone with a thought. At this moment, the Sea Dragon clone was nearly 200 meters longer than before. It had reached 1,500 meters. The 1,500-meter-long creature meandered in the sky, giving people a great sense of oppression. Ordinary people would feel incomparable panic and despair just by looking at it. Emosure used the Devil Dragon's Eye to look at the Sea Dragon clone's level. Level 5 Strong Mutated Desolate Beast. The Sea Dragon clone had absorbed the Dragon Pearl, so its level should have risen long ago. However, it was limited by Emosure's level not being able to rise, so it hadn't risen. This time, Emosure had risen 2 levels in a row, so the restrictions were lifted. It had also risen 2 levels in a row. Level 5 Strong Mutated Desolate Beast. In terms of realm, it was equivalent to a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. In fact, the Sea Dragon clone's combat power far exceeded that of a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. Even if it encountered a level 6 Grand Desolate Master, it wouldn't be at a disadvantage. This time, after fusing with the dragon vein, Emosure's overall strength had been greatly improved. Emosure put away the Sea Dragon clone, planning to leave the miniature world. But at this moment, he discovered that the miniature world was no longer the same as before. The surrounding houses had long collapsed. The bamboo forest behind the house had long disappeared. The bamboo seemed to have been blown far away by the shock wave. The grass on the ground had completely disappeared, revealing the wet soil. A little further away, the Dragon Valley had completely collapsed, and the river in the middle of the Dragon Valley had also disappeared. Emosure paused and quickly reacted. It must have been caused by the huge commotion when he was fusing with the dragon vein. However, at that time, he was in extreme pain and didn't pay attention to this at all. He smiled bitterly and helplessly. It wasn't easy to get this miniature world, but it was destroyed just like that. It was a pity. However, the system reminded him, frowny face, you can reshape this world according to its previous appearance. Emosure asked doubtfully, reshape? How? The system replied, all you need is a single thought. Isn't this equivalent to a god? Emosure said. The system replied, the miniature world belongs to the host. Therefore, in the miniature world, the host is a god. When Emosure heard this, his mind moved slightly, and he whispered, restore. In the next moment, the broken bamboos that had flown far away automatically flew back. It was reconnected to the original fracture. Moreover, there were no gaps in the joint, as if it had never been broken. The pieces of grass that flew away flew back and covered the soil. On the ruins of the Dragon Valley in the distance, the massive boulders quickly flew up and returned to the mountain peak. Water also began to flow out of the river within the Dragon Valley. In just a few minutes, everything that had been destroyed was restored to its original state. Emosure looked at this magical scene and said in surprise, that works? Does that mean that I can change the rules as I please here? The system replied, "The host is the god of the miniature world. You can do whatever you want." Mo Sure immediately moved his mind. In the next moment, the water from the Dragon Valley waterfall no longer flowed down. Instead, it flowed upstream. The water in the nearby lake condensed into a figure on the surface of the lake. On the surface of the lake, MJ danced. At the same time, 10 suns appeared in the sky under the control of his mind. 10 suns lined up in a row. When he watched TV before, there was a 9-star alignment. Now, it was a 10-star alignment. However, these 10 suns did not feel hot. Instead, they were very cool. Then, the surface of MJ's body that was condensed by the water on the surface of the lake began to change constantly. In the end, the clothes on his body became ancient Chinese clothes. A large bow was also condensed in his hand. He drew the bow and shot at the 10 suns in the sky. Whoosh, the bow was drawn like a full moon, and the arrow was like a shooting star. After the arrow left the bowstring, it also rapidly changed. Soon, it reached a length of 1,000 meters. Then, it steadily hit the sun at the front. However, after it hit this sun, the sun did not explode. It did not fall down either. The arrow passed through the first sun and continued to fly toward the second sun. Then the third, the fourth. In the end, the 1,000-meter-long arrow pierced through all 10 suns in the sky. It looked as if a giant candied hawthorn had appeared in the sky. An eagle flew past. When it saw the giant Tanghulu, it was so scared that it turned around and fled. However, before it could fly 5 meters, it was shot by another arrow and fell from the sky. When it fell to the ground, it turned into a pot of steaming eagle mushroom stew. And all of this came from Mo Sure's mind. As long as he thought of something, it would appear here. If he wanted beauties, a bunch of beauties would immediately appear here. If he wanted money, a pile of money would immediately appear in front of him. Of course, in this miniature world, money was of no use to him. He just enjoyed the feeling of controlling everything. Everything in the world, any law, would move because of him. Unfortunately, such an abnormal ability could only be used in this miniature world. If he could use it in the entire outside world, wouldn't he be invincible long ago? After having enough fun, a thought appeared in Mo Sure's mind again. Return to your original state. In the next moment, the scenery in front of him quickly changed. In less than 3 minutes, everything returned to its original state. It had to be said that in this world, the feeling of destroying the world with a thought and creating the world with a thought was quite satisfying. Then, Mo Sure raised his head to look at the sky. Next, it was time to meet the Dragon Clan. Thinking of this, Mo Sure's figure disappeared from the miniature world with a thought. Dragon Valley, Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan had mobilized almost a third of their clansmen to search for Mo Sure. This search lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. For 3 days and 3 nights, they had almost turned the Dragon Valley upside down. As for the 2 spirit readers, they had even thoroughly searched the area within a radius of 3,000 kilometers around the Dragon Valley. However, they still couldn't find any clues about Mo Sure. In the Dragon Valley, Long Shuang's face was filled with regret. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have taken out the dragon vein even if he was beaten to death. Now, the dragon vein had only been in his hands for a few days and he had lost it before he could even warm it up. Not only did this cause him to lose the help of his cultivation, it also caused the elders in the Dragon Clan to doubt his ability. This time, even if the dragon vein could be found, his position in the clan would not be as stable as before. Chapter 448. Long Shuang of the Dragon Clan was both depressed and resentful. He had thought that after obtaining the dragon vein, his future would be smooth and he would be able to become the clan leader. In the end, in just a few days, the dragon vein had been lost and he had not caught anyone. This would have a great impact on his future. And all of this was caused by Mo Sure. Thinking of this, he clenched his fists. If he caught that kid, he would definitely tear him into pieces. At the same time, the entire Dragon Clan was searching for Mo Sure. They couldn't just watch as the dragon vein was snatched away by someone else. After all, their dragon clan only had this one dragon vein. That afternoon, Mo Shi's figure suddenly appeared in Long Shuang's room without any warning. Long Shuang, who was feeling depressed, felt someone appear behind him. He immediately turned his head. The moment he saw Mo Shi, the anger in his heart soared. "Kid, give me back my dragon vein." As he spoke, his entire right arm instantly turned into a genetic weapon. His genetic weapon was very special. It was not like the other cultivators' genetic weapons, which were weapons like swords, spears, and rods. His genetic weapon was a thick dragon claw. It was somewhat similar to Mo Shi's dragon claw. He roared and slashed at Mo Shi with his claw. Mo Shi smiled indifferently and stretched out his right arm. Bang! He easily grabbed Long Shuang's dragon claw. Seeing this, Long Shuang was secretly shocked. Due to his anger just now, he had used 100% of his strength in this attack. However, this guy had easily blocked his attack with 100% of his strength. This guy didn't even use his genetic weapon. Most importantly, the aura emitted from this guy's body clearly indicated that he was only a level 5 Desolate Hunter. A level 5 Desolate Hunter could easily block the attack of a level 10 Desolate Hunter without using his genetic weapon. Are you King kidding me? However, this made him even angrier. "Kid, you're courting death." Long Shuang roared again. The genetic weapon on his right arm began to light up with a red and white light. He activated his energy weapon. Then, he raised his energy weapon and was about to attack Mo Shi. However, Mo Shi raised his right palm, and a fiery red glow appeared on the edge of his right palm. Then, he slashed at Long Shuang's energy weapon. Chi! A soft sound rang out. Long Shuang's energy weapon was instantly cut into two. It fell to the ground. At the same time, the section that fell to the ground was filled with energy, but it did not shoot out. Suddenly, it exploded with a loud bang. Crash! Long Shuang's house was torn apart by this explosion. As for Long Shuang, she was blasted several meters away. Her face was covered in blood. The excruciating pain of losing his right arm caused him to fall to the ground in agony, wailing in pain. Mo Shi, on the other hand, had been prepared for this. A layer of energy barrier appeared around his body, blocking the damage from the explosion. His body was unharmed. At the same time, the dragons in the vicinity heard the explosion and rushed over. It was also at this moment that they discovered Mo Shi, whom they had been searching for several days, but to no avail. "It's him. That guy. The guy who stole the dragon vein." As soon as he shouted, hundreds of dragon tribe members immediately surrounded him. At the same time, the news quickly reached the ears of the dragon clan's patriarch and great elder. All the spirit reader masters of the dragon clan immediately used their spirit sense to lock onto Mo Shi. Mo Shi laughed at himself. "It seems that I'm quite the center of attention." At this moment, Long Shuang endured the pain of his broken arm and let out a beast-like roar, "Return my dragon vein." Mo Shi glanced at the surrounding dragon clan disciples, then looked at Long Shuang. He shook his head. "I can't return it. I've already fused with it." When the dragon clan heard this, they were all stunned. All of them knew that the incomplete dragon vein could only assist in cultivation and could not be fused with it. Unless this brat had obtained a complete dragon vein. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts immediately burned with passion. In the legends of the dragon clan, after fusing with a complete dragon vein, one would be able to transform into a true dragon. Almost every generation of the dragon clan wanted to find a complete dragon vein and transform into a dragon. But tens of thousands of years had passed, and not a single person had transformed into a dragon. They did not expect that there would be someone who had fused with a complete dragon vein. How could this not make their hearts burn with passion? At this moment, the patriarch and great elder had also rushed over. They had originally come to capture Mo Shi, but when they heard Mo Shi's words, the two of them looked at each other and stopped. Patriarch Lord Long's 2-foot-long black beard fluttered in the wind. On his body, a mighty long way spread out and attacked Emosure. At the same time, he said, "You said that you have fused with a complete dragon vein. Do you have evidence?" After saying that, he carefully observed the changes on Emosure's body. Emosure naturally also felt the long way. He could not help but shake his head. Wasn't it just releasing long way? Who didn't know how to do it? In his body, a long way was also released. He was already a dragon, and now that he had fused with the dragon vein, how could these pseudo-dragons compare to Longwei? The mighty Longwei spread out. All the dragons within 100-meter radius, except for those Grand Desolate Masters, unconsciously knelt down. As for those Grand Desolate Masters, each and every one of them were extremely terrified. Under Emosure's Longwei, they only felt a sense of fear from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of fear had nothing to do with courage. No matter how brave a person was, under this Longwei, they would feel fear from the depths of their hearts. Seeing this, Patriarch Lord Long looked at the Great Elder beside him. This Great Elder was farsighted and had always been his strategist. However, this time, he saw fear in the Great Elder's eyes. This made him puzzled. Could it be that this guy in front of him had really fused with the dragon vein? Thinking of this, Lord Long turned his head and said to Emosure, "Since you have truly fused with the dragon vein, you must be able to transform into a dragon. If that's the case, our dragon clan will definitely respect you as our leader and obey your orders. Our dragon clan has believed in dragons for tens of thousands of years. If you can let our dragon clan see the true body of a dragon today, it will be our dragon clan's fortune." Hearing this, Emosure directly plundered Lord Long's memory. From Lord Long's memory, he knew that Lord Long still suspected that he had the true body of a dragon. If he showed the true body of a dragon now, Lord Long would really lead the entire dragon clan to submit to him. After all, their dragon clan had believed in dragons for tens of thousands of years. Understanding this, Emosure nodded, "Watch carefully." As he spoke, his figure quickly changed. In a short period of time, it turned into a huge dragon that was 150 meters long and covered in black scales. All the members of the dragon tribe who were present were terrified when they saw Emosure's appearance. Then, they all prostrated on the ground. Chapter 449. Emosure transformed into his bloodthirsty demon dragon form. His 150-meter-long body gave everyone a huge sense of pressure. His ferocious dragon head, which was as big as a house, struck fear into everyone's hearts. Its thick and solid dragon tail and sharp dragon claws all showed how powerful this giant dragon was. The Grand Desolate Masters who hadn't knelt down before all knelt down when they saw Emosure, including their Patriarch and Grand Elder. Even the Grand Elder's forehead had a few drops of cold sweat rolling down to the ground. Emosure was secretly happy to see these people kneeling on the ground. The dragon race was the most powerful force on the Flaming Dawn continent. No one dared to disobey the dragon race. As long as he controlled the dragon race, many things would be easy in the future. Thinking of this, he uttered a dragon's roar. "Rise, all of you." Everyone in the dragon race breathed a sigh of relief. They all stood up. Looking at the dragon in front of them, their shock, excitement, surprise, and yearning overlapped. This made the expressions on their faces very complicated. However, at this moment, a voice that seemed to come from underground suddenly came. "He is a bloodthirsty demon dragon." The ancient dragon race has an ancient rule that any dragon who sees a bloodthirsty demon dragon should be killed. Those who violate this rule will be expelled from the dragon race and will never be a dragon again. Hearing this, Emosure spread his dragon's consciousness underground. However, his dragon's consciousness could only reach about 5 kilometers underground. It couldn't go any deeper. Obviously, the owner of the voice was hiding 5 kilometers underground. When the surrounding dragons heard this voice, they all called out, "Old clan leader." It's the old chief's voice. The old chief is still alive. He said this is a bloodthirsty demon dragon. What is a bloodthirsty demon dragon? I don't know. I've never heard of it before. The chief of the dragon race, Lord Long, was shocked when he heard this. Then he turned to look at Emoshure's wings. His heart couldn't help but tremble. He saw that the dragon's wings had several holes of various sizes. They looked like tattered bedsheets. It was only then he remembered that the chief had mentioned 100 years ago that the bloodthirsty demon dragon's greatest characteristic was that its wings were this kind of tattered pair of wings. 100 years ago, he had heard the old patriarch mention that in ancient times, there was a type of giant dragon called the bloodthirsty demonic dragon. The bloodthirsty demon dragon took pleasure in slaughtering other dragons. Therefore, they had killed too many giant dragons and caused the entire dragon race to be enraged. As a result, the entire dragon race put aside all of their previous grudges and worked together to surround and kill the bloodthirsty demon dragon. In the end, all the bloodthirsty demon dragons were eliminated. Who would have thought that the bloodthirsty demon dragon would appear again after tens of thousands of years? Fortunately, the dragon's aura was only equivalent to that of a grade 5 desolate hunter. Even if the giant dragon's body was abnormally strong and could fight across several ranks, the giant dragon's body was still extremely strong. However, he had over 100 grand desolate masters in the dragon race. How could they not be able to deal with it? Thinking of this, he pointed at Emoshure's huge body and issued a dignified order from his throat. All disciples of the dragon clan, listen up. This is a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. It enjoys slaughtering the dragon clan. Everyone, do whatever it takes to exterminate it. Kill. When he shouted this, the veins on his neck were clearly visible. This was the aura of the dragon clan. It was fine if they did not make a move, but once they made a move, they had to have an indomitable will and kill in one strike. The dragon clan disciples were a little confused at first. They, the dragon clan, had been looking forward to a giant dragon for tens of thousands of years. Now that a giant dragon had finally appeared in front of them, they were going to kill it. This was really hard for them to accept. However, when they heard that the bloodthirsty demon dragon enjoyed slaughtering the dragon clan, they all came back to their senses. In the next moment, all the spiritual psyche masters attacked at the same time. To kill an enemy, the most time-saving and labor-saving method was undoubtedly to use spiritual psyche. And in their dragon clan, there were as many as 100 spiritual psyche masters. With over 100 spiritual psyche masters attacking at the same time, killing a giant dragon equivalent to a grade 5 desolate hunter was not a problem. Therefore, these hundreds of spiritual psyche masters spread out their spiritual psyche at the same time and pressed down on Emoshure. However, the expected scene of the giant dragon being unable to move and finally exploding to death did not appear. On the contrary, a huge wave of spiritual psyche pressed back towards them. Bang! The body of a spiritual psyche master suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It scared the other spiritual psyche master beside him. However, before he could finish his jump, bang, he also exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Following that, all the more than 100 spiritual psyche masters exploded like firecrackers. This scene made the surrounding dragon tribe disciples shudder with fear and trepidation. What? What's going on? It's also a spiritual psyche master. When the two level 8 spiritual psyche masters of the dragon clan saw this, their expressions changed drastically. To be honest, they could also make the bodies of these spiritual psyche masters explode. However, they could not make the bodies of those spiritual psyche masters explode so easily like setting off firecrackers. After all, the bodies of the dragon clan disciples had been completely transformed by the dragon blood. Even if the spiritual psyche masters did not focus on their bodies, their physical strength was almost equivalent to that of an ordinary desolate hunter. Even if they were level 8 desolate hunters, they could not easily crush their bodies. It could be seen that the level of this kid's spiritual psyche was higher than the two of them. Now that they thought about it, they had all noticed this guy when he first came. However, in the end, they did not care at all and treated him as an ordinary desolate hunter. Thinking about it, it was really ironic. However, this was not the time for them to regret. While using their spiritual psyche to protect themselves, they shouted to the others, "He's also a spiritual psyche master, and his level is very high." A level 8 spiritual psyche master shouted. Bang! Before he could finish his words, his body had already exploded. His explosion scared the Grand Desolate Master next to him and he jumped away. When the last spiritual psyche master saw this, despair suddenly rose in his heart. As a spiritual psyche master, he knew spiritual psyche masters the best. He knew that the other party's spiritual psyche was so strong that it was useless no matter where he hid. Unless he could hide deep underground in a very short period of time. However, he did not have such ability. Therefore, at this moment, he was only in despair. In despair. Bang! His body exploded as well. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in fact, it was completed in a short 30 seconds. This scene caused the expressions of all the Dragon Tribe disciples present to change drastically. These spiritual psyche masters had a very high status in the Dragon Clan. Although spiritual psyche masters had weak bodies, their combat strength was very strong. Ordinary desolate hunters could not get close to spiritual psyche masters at all. Now, more than 100 spiritual psyche masters, including 2 level 8 spiritual psyche masters, were all killed in such a short period of time. How could they not be shocked? Chapter 450. Emosure did not move at all, but in just half a minute, he had killed more than 100 spiritual psyche masters of the Dragon Clan. This shocked all of the Dragon Clan members. Even Lord Long, the leader of the Dragon Clan, was shocked. The aura of this giant dragon was only equivalent to that of a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. However, he had a huge spiritual sense. A spiritual psyche master was not scary, and neither was a desolate master. When these two were combined, it was the most terrifying. With the spiritual sense of a spiritual psyche master and the body of a desolate master, how could he not be strong? It seemed that his true combat strength was comparable to that of a level 10 desolate master. At the same time, the disciples of the Dragon Clan were also shocked. However, after they recovered from the shock, their hearts were filled with anger and hatred. Kill him! Kill him! Today, we must not let him leave the Dragon Valley alive. Perhaps it was because the disciples of the Dragon Clan had absorbed the dragon's blood, so they had the pride and unwillingness to admit defeat in their characters. You are very strong, right? I will kill you. Therefore, in the midst of the battle cries, thousands of Dragon Clan members condensed their energy weapons. They tried to bombard Emosure. However, bang 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 bang, the disciples of the Dragon Clan once again set off firecrackers. As long as it was a level 5 desolate master, the disciples of the Dragon Clan exploded. At the same time, Emosure spread out his wings to protect his body. Boom 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 boom, those people's energy weapons bombarded Emosure's wings. However, they were unable to cause any damage to his tattered wings. On the contrary, the bodies of the thousands of Dragon Clan members who were level 5 Desolate Master and below all exploded. This scene once again made all of the Dragon Clan members present feel fear. They originally thought that the spiritual psyche masters' bodies were not strong enough and would explode. However, now it seemed that as long as it was a level 5 Desolate Master and below, it would explode. This kid's spiritual sense was terrifying. What they did not know was that Emosure had only used 30% of his dragon's will. He had to be on guard against the old patriarch underground at all times. Otherwise, his draconic will alone could kill all the Dragon Clan's level 5 desolate hunters. However, what puzzled him was that the old patriarch should have appeared when he killed those spiritual readers. How could they watch him kill so many desolate hunters after he had killed all of the spiritual reader masters? Why hasn't he appeared yet? However, this was not the time to dwell on this. Emosure set up a virtual sentry tower next to him. This way, he could have a panoramic view of his surroundings. At the same time, he flapped his wings and soared into the sky. It let out a dragon's roar. Roar! Previously, he had intended to subdue the dragon race. But since they had no intention of surrendering, then he would just kill them all. Since he was going to be the bloodthirsty demon dragon, he might as well go all the way. Seeing this, the dragon clan's patriarch turned to Long Feng and Long Yun and said, "This is your chance." Feng and Yun naturally knew what the dragon clan leader meant. Originally, they were supposed to capture Mo Shi and interrogate Mo Shi about his purpose in coming here. That would be the end of the test. In the end, the two of them had completely failed the test. But now that the patriarch had said this, it was equivalent to giving them another chance. As long as they killed this bloodthirsty demon dragon, the two of them would definitely be recorded in the history of the dragon clan. Moreover, Long Shuang's genetic martial arts had been crippled, so he had completely lost his chance. Then, if they killed this bloodthirsty demon dragon, the dragon clan's patriarch would definitely be one of them. Thinking of this, the two of them nodded. Then, they condensed their energy weapons. A pair of wings condensed behind them. With a flap of their wings, they arrived in the sky. Facing Mo Shi, who was more than 150 meters tall, the two of them were not afraid at all. Instead, they were a little excited. "Today, the two of us will slay the dragon." Their energy weapons were also in the form of dragon claws. The two of them raised their energy weapons at the same time. Boom! Two thick pillars of light shot out from their energy weapons and blasted towards Mo Shi's body. Boom! Boom! These two energy weapons bombarded Mo Shi's body. Mo Shi's body did not even sway. Mo Shi sneered. He suddenly turned around, and that 70-meter-long giant tail swept across. Bang! Bang! It smashed fiercely onto the two of them. And it brought the two of them with it, directly smashing into the cliff behind the waterfall beside them. Rumble! Water splashed everywhere, and huge rocks flew everywhere. The waterfall cliff immediately collapsed. The two of them were also buried by the rocks. As for the waterfall, it was no longer a waterfall, but a river. When the surrounding crowd saw this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The two strongest prodigies of the dragon clan couldn't even withstand a single blow from this giant dragon. And their attacks landed on the giant dragon, but they were useless. One had to know that the aura of this giant dragon was far inferior to the two of them. In the end, the combat power displayed was exactly the opposite. This was really out of everyone's expectations. But at this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the place that had just collapsed. Rumble! Huge rocks flew everywhere. At the same time, a huge wave more than 30 meters high splashed up. At the top of the huge wave, two figures suddenly soared into the sky. Everyone looked carefully. These two figures were none other than Long Feng and Long Yun from before. The two figures stopped in the sky. They looked at each other. Then, they flapped their wings at the same time and flew into the sky. They flew over 10,000 meters in the sky. The two of them paused for a moment. Then, they turned their heads at the same time and flew towards Mo Shi below. While flying, energy once again shot out from the energy weapons of the two. It bombarded towards Mo Shi. At the same time, the two of them did not stop. Instead, they merged with the two energies and blasted towards Mo Shi at the same time. Long Feng's voice came from the energy, Feng Wuxiang. Long Yun's voice also came from the other energy, Yun Wuchang. Then, the two of them spoke at the same time. Wind and cloud combine, Maha Limitless. In the next moment, the two energies actually merged into one. This new energy kept changing in the air. One moment it was like a long sword, the next moment it was like a saber, the next moment it was like a spear. However, no matter what shape it took, its target remained the same. It stabbed straight towards Mo Shi, who was about 500 meters away from the ground. The dragon clan's patriarch clenched his fists slightly. Wind and cloud combine, Maha Limitless, was a peerless divine skill passed down by the dragon clan. The two people who needed to practice this divine skill were both extremely talented people. Moreover, the two of them must not have the slightest bit of animosity between them. Only in this way could they successfully use wind and cloud combine, Maha Limitless. And the power of this divine skill was extremely terrifying. It was said that as long as this divine skill was used, it would be an invincible existence in the entire continent. Even the most elite Grand Desolate Masters would have to avoid this divine skill. Chapter 451. Wind and Cloud Combination, Maha Immeasurable. The figures of the two people, together with their energy, bombarded Mo below. The people on the ground could feel the enormous pressure of that energy. Even the trees on the ground snapped under this enormous pressure. The houses on the ground began to collapse under the immense pressure. Some of the weaker Dragon Clan disciples were unable to raise their heads under this enormous pressure. They had no choice but to use the energy in their bodies to resist this enormous pressure. The Dragon Clan patriarch Longba raised his head to look at this energy. There seemed to be a hint of sparkling in his eyes. In his lifetime, he had finally witnessed the birth of this divine skill. In fact, as early as 50 years ago, the two of them had already begun to practice wind and cloud combination. But they had never succeeded. Who would have thought that the attack of this bloodthirsty demon dragon just now seemed to have opened up their conception and governing vessels? The two of them finally succeeded in using wind and cloud combination for the first time. As for Long Shuang, who had lost his arm, he suddenly realized something. It turned out that he had never been the most talented person in the eyes of the patriarch. Wind and cloud combination was passed on to Long Feng and Long Yun. But it was not passed on to him. He seemed to have obtained the dragon vein, but the incomplete dragon vein was actually only used to assist in his cultivation. Other than that, there was no other help. Unless he could make up for the incomplete dragon vein. At this moment, Long Shuang had a feeling that the whole world knew that he was an idiot, and only he felt that he was awesome. His body fell to the ground weakly. And at this moment, Mo also felt the power of wind and cloud combination. The Dragon Clan actually had such a divine skill. In his senses, such a divine skill was enough to instantly kill a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. Helpless, Mo had no choice but to use his mind to instantly vanish on the spot. This was not teleportation. Because the Dragon Clan had used some unknown method to seal the space of the Dragon Valley. Therefore, teleportation could not be used here. He hid in his own miniature space. At this moment, the energy of wind and cloud combination had already blasted at the position where Mo was just now. However, because of Mo sudden disappearance, the energy lost its target. It was as if a punch with all its strength had landed on a ball of cotton. Feng Yun and Feng Yun quickly separated. If this continued, just the aftermath of their attack would be enough to wipe out more than half of the Dragon Clan disciples nearby. However, after the two clones, they were both panting heavily. Although wind and cloud fusion was extremely powerful, it consumed a lot of energy. Furthermore, he hadn't been able to release all of the energy just now, so there would be a backlash from the energy. This would also have a negative impact on both of them. Beside them, the clan chief and great elder were frowning. They had clearly sealed the space in the Dragon Valley, but that brat had suddenly disappeared. Where did he go? Last time, this brat had disappeared into thin air, and now he was here again. It was indeed a little strange. At this moment, Mo's enormous figure appeared once again. Seeing this, the two men hurriedly leaped up, wanting to use wind and cloud fusion again. At the same time, they looked at the patriarch. The clan leader nodded at them, telling them not to worry. This time, they would not let him disappear again. At the same time, the clan leader tossed out an item. That thing instantly split into more than 10 in the air. It surrounded Mo. An energy net popped out from each item and covered Mo. Seeing this, Mo opened his huge mouth. Boom, he spat out a mouthful of black ice breath. Immediately, the temperature within a 5-kilometer radius plummeted. Stones, houses, trees, rivers, almost all of them were frozen in an instant. Those Dragon Clan disciples whose strength was below that of a level 8 Desolate Hunter had no time to dodge. Under the mystic ice breath, they were instantly frozen into ice sculptures. The large nets that flew towards Mo were also frozen. They fell to the ground and smashed into ice shards. Dragon Wind and Dragon Cloud had just flown into the air. But at this moment, they were instantly frozen. Although their strength had reached that of a level 10 Desolate Hunter. But Emo's black ice breath was targeted at the two of them. The two of them were frozen in mid-air and fell to the ground. They still tried to use their energy to break through this ice seal. But Emo's dragon claw had already reached over. Crack, crack, the two of them were caught by the dragon claw in mid-air. Instantly, their muscles and bones were broken and blood splattered. At this point, Wind and Cloud were dead. Seeing this, Lord Long couldn't help but take a step back. He had nurtured Wind and Cloud for more than 50 years, hoping that the two of them could combine Wind and Cloud to make the Dragon Clan famous throughout the Flaming Origin continent. But he didn't expect that the first time he saw Wind and Cloud combination would be the last time. And when Long Shuang saw this scene, she was actually gloating. Who would have thought that the two people who were flaunting their strength just now were already dead? As the saying goes, fortune and misfortune lie in wait. If she had practiced Wind and Cloud combination, the one who would die now would probably be her. The rest of the Dragon Clan disciples couldn't help but take 2 steps back when they saw Wind and Cloud being killed in an instant. As Dragon Clan disciples, they naturally knew about Wind and Cloud combination, Maha Immeasurable. Wind and Cloud combination, Maha Immeasurable, had no fixed move. But its power was something that all Dragon Clan disciples yearned for. From ancient times until now, Wind and Cloud combination had only appeared a total of 3 times in history. Every time it appeared, it was an absolutely invincible existence. It was an existence that could change the direction of history. But this 4th time, it was broken by someone. Even Wind and Cloud were killed in an instant by the opponent. How strong was this guy? In fact, they didn't know that if Mo really took Wind and Cloud as an opponent, the two of them would have been killed in an instant the first time. There was no chance for them to use Wind and Cloud combination at all. Mo was just trying to preserve his strength as much as possible. Because there was an old monster of the Dragon Clan underground. He had been waiting for that old monster to appear. Before that old monster appeared, he couldn't expose all of his strength. But what surprised him was that of the 3 most talented youths of the Dragon Clan, one was crippled and the other 2 were killed by him. Under such circumstances, that old monster still didn't appear. What was he planning? Did he have to wait for him to destroy the entire Dragon Clan before coming out? What was the point of appearing at that time? At this time, when the Dragon Clan's first elders saw that the 3 most talented geniuses of the Dragon Clan were either dead or crippled, anger rose from his heart, and evil grew in his heart. He said to the Dragon Clan Patriarch beside him, "Patriarch, Long requests to fight." But the Patriarch shook his head, Long, you and I are the last 2 mountains of the Dragon Clan, how can you easily fight?" Chapter 452. Long, you and I are the last 2 mountains of the Dragon Clan. How can we go to war so easily? Patriarch Lord Long stopped Grand Elder Long's idea. Naturally, Mo had already heard Lord Long's words. He was a little puzzled. The Dragon Clan still had the old Patriarch hiding underground. From his voice, he should be much stronger than the Patriarch and Grand Elder. Why did the Patriarch say that he and Grand Elder were the last 2 mountains? Could it be that there was something that was hard to say? Thinking of this, Mo carefully looked through the Patriarch's memories. A person's memories were huge, especially for a grand desolate master like Lord Long, who had lived for nearly 1,000 years. His memories were so vast that it was unimaginable. It would take at least 10 minutes to look through his memories. While attacking the dragons on the ground, Mo flipped through the memories of the Dragon Clan Patriarch. About 5 minutes later, he found that he had missed something when he looked through the Patriarch's memories for the first time. It turned out that the old Patriarch of the Dragon Clan hiding underground had gone into seclusion to make a breakthrough. He had been in seclusion for more than 50 years. He was at the critical moment of his breakthrough and was about to break through. If he forcefully came out of seclusion now, these 50 years would be wasted. Moreover, his lifespan was almost up. If he did not break through, he would die of old age soon. Therefore, he had to break through to extend his lifespan. Seeing this, Mo sure understood. Since you don't dare to come out, I will destroy your entire dragon clan. At this moment, the patriarch of the dragon clan, Lord Long, saw that the desolate hunters in front of Mo sure were just food. He immediately ordered, all desolate hunters, retreat. Grand desolate masters, take the lead. The desolate hunters who were attacking Mo sure retreated one after another. The more than 100 grand desolate masters went to greet Mo sure. Mo sure secretly sneered. He opened his mouth and let out a long and domineering dragon roar. In the next moment, his throat had turned fiery red. Then, a ball of fiery red energy was spat out from his mouth. Boom, scarlet flame dragon breath. This ball of flame energy was as hot as lava. Everything within a radius of 1,000 meters turned into a sea of fire. The desolate hunters who were unable to retreat in time screamed and wailed in the sea of fire. As for those grand desolate masters, they hurriedly condensed energy barriers to resist the scorching flames. At first, they were full of information. The bloodthirsty demon dragon only had the aura of a level 5 desolate hunter. Their barrier should be able to easily block the dragon's fire energy. However, they soon discovered that they were wrong. The flames contained a terrifyingly high temperature. Their light shields melted like snow in front of these flames. Oh no, I can't hold on. How is this possible? Its aura is clearly only that of a 5th-rank desolate hunter. Dodge! Amidst the screams, the grand desolate masters all dodged. Those who were quick enough were barely able to escape. Those who were slightly slower had already drawn the fire to themselves. Ah! No! Quickly put out the fire. Their bodies were burning with raging flames as they screamed and ran. The grand desolate masters who had activated their water-type energy hurriedly used their water-type energy to extinguish the fire. However, they soon discovered that their water-type energy was unable to extinguish such a fire. Only now did they realize how terrifying the dragon's energy was. The dragon's fire energy was something that they, as humans, could not extinguish. At this moment, the level 3 Grand Desolate Master Patriarch, Lord Long, quickly covered these people with his ice-type energy. Only then did the flames on their bodies quickly disappear. Mo sure turned his head and looked at Patriarch Lord Long. Lord Long also turned his head and looked straight at Mo sure. His gaze was filled with undisguised provocation. After extinguishing the fire just now, he already understood. The bloodthirsty demon dragon's true strength was about the same as his, a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. As long as he and Grand Elder Long worked together, it should not be difficult to kill this guy. Mo sure naturally understood the Grand Elder's thoughts. After he transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon, he had not truly fought with his full strength. Therefore, he also wanted to have a hearty battle. However, he knew that this was not realistic. Because there was still an old monster hiding underground. If he consumed too much energy here, wouldn't it be difficult for him to deal with that old monster if he really couldn't hold it in and came out? Thinking of this, he said in his mind, System, designated reward, Virus 0. The system's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Designated reward requires 1 million evolution points. Virus 0 requires 10 billion evolution points. Would you like to confirm the sign-in? Mo sure shook his head helplessly. The price had increased again. Fortunately, the evolution points he had accumulated before had already broken through 1 trillion. Therefore, these 10 billion evolution points were nothing to Missouri sure. Soon, a Virus 0 appeared in his hand. Of course, the virus was too small for these people to notice it. Mo sure turned his head and looked at a Grand Desolate Master. He flicked his finger lightly. Suddenly, the Virus 0 bounced onto the Grand Desolate Master's chest. Then, with a thought, he wanted to detonate the Virus 0. However, the system's voice sounded in his mind again, frowny face with the host's current strength. The Virus Zero can only be detonated on enemies below the Grand Desolate Master Realm and can only destroy enemies below the Grand Desolate Master Realm. Hearing this, Mo Sure was a little speechless. It seemed that as his strength increased, the power of the Virus Zero was relatively declining. However, it was already powerful enough to destroy enemies below the Grand Desolate Master Realm. After all, there were less than 200 Grand Desolate Masters in the Flaming Origin continent. Moreover, more than 100 Grand Desolate Masters were going to be destroyed today. Therefore, this Virus Zero was invincible enough. With a thought, he put away the Virus Zero on the Grand Desolate Master. Then, he implanted it into Long Shuang's body. At this moment, the Dragon Patriarch let out a loud shout. All disciples of the Dragon Clan, listen up, activate the Dragon Clan's bloodline and use the Giant Dragon formation. His voice spread throughout the entire Dragon Valley that was over 100 kilometers in length. In the next moment, the aura of all the Dragon Clan disciples in the Dragon Valley soared. Almost instantly, they reached the peak of level 10 Desolate Master. At the same time, all of them slowly floated up. Seeing this, Mo Sure once again looked through the memories of the Dragon Clan Patriarch. What was the Dragon Clan's bloodline? What was the Giant Dragon formation? Soon, he understood. It turned out that these people had drunk the Giant Dragon's blood and had a trace of the Giant Dragon's Dragon Chi in their bodies. When they used a special method to activate this trace of Dragon Chi, they could reach the peak of their battle strength. At the same time, the Giant Dragon formation could condense everyone's battle strength. When they used the Giant Dragon formation, their combined battle strength was equivalent to a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. Chapter 453. When Mo Sure learned from the memories of the Dragon Clan leader that the Dragon Clan bloodline and the Giant Dragon formation were extremely powerful, he was also a little surprised. The Dragon Clan, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, was still quite something. With the strength of more than 200,000 Desolate Hunters, they were actually able to erupt with the strength of a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. This was really surprising. However, this was not like those movies or novels. Mo Sure would not wait for his opponent to release their ultimate move before making his move. The last method was to not give his opponent a chance to release their ultimate move. With a thought, Mo Sure planted the Virus Zero in a Desolate Hunter's body. With another thought. It was as if there was an invisible shockwave, with the Desolate Hunter as the center, spreading out in all directions. In an instant, within a radius of 100 kilometers, all living creatures below the Grand Desolate Master level turned blood red. Whether it was the Desolate Hunters, the mutated Desolate Beasts, the trees, the flowers, the fishes, or the birds. Looking down from the sky, with the Desolate Hunter as the center, a blood-red circle could be seen spreading out in an instant. It formed a huge circle with a radius of 100 kilometers. Within this circle, everything had turned blood-red. Those Desolate Hunters who had just activated their Dragon Clan bloodline and were flying towards the sky, wanting to condense the Giant Dragon formation, all became sluggish and fell to the ground one after another. Immediately after, Mo Sure's dragon consciousness moved. Shua, the body of a Desolate Hunter flowed onto the ground like quicksand. The body of another Desolate Hunter beside him also flowed down like quicksand. It was not just humans. The infected trees, flowers, fishes, and birds at the side, in short, all living creatures that had not reached the Grand Desolate Master level flowed onto the ground like quicksand. They turned into blood-red powder. In a short 5 seconds, more than 200,000 Desolate Hunters of the Dragon Clan were annihilated. At the same time, the killing points in Mo Sure's mind were changing crazily. It was increasing rapidly. In the end, it stopped at over 200,000. Killing points, 230,601,000,000. If he wanted to level up now, he would need to reach 1 million killing points. Now that he had obtained more than 200,000 killing points so easily, Mo Sure was really happy. Contrary to his mood, all the Grand Desolate Masters of the Dragon Clan felt the opposite. They looked at the blood-red world around them. Seeing the people they were familiar with turn into dust like quicksand, they were all shocked and angry. What shocked him the most was what kind of strange trick this guy had used to turn all the desolate hunters into dust. This was clearly beyond their scope of understanding. They were angry because there were more than 230,000 people in the Dragon Clan. Now, in just a few seconds, there were only 100 of them left. How could they not be angry? In particular, Lord Long, the chief of the Dragon Clan, was trembling in shock and anger. The tens of thousands of years of inheritance of the Dragon Clan was about to end in his hands. And the culprit behind all of this was the bloodthirsty demonic dragon before him. Preposterous, simply preposterous. In their shock and anger, everyone looked at Immortal with eyes that seemed to be able to spit fire. Kill. Kill him. Kill this bastard. These dragon race grand desolate masters had nearly lost their rationality in their anger. They had the blood of dragons in their bodies, so it was impossible for them to retreat and run away. The prideful genes of dragons did not allow them to run away. Then, they could only fight. They could only kill the enemy in front of them. However, although the chief was angry, he was still rational. Everyone else in the Dragon Clan was already dead, but fortunately, none of the Grand Desolate Masters had died. No matter where these 100 Grand Desolate Masters went, they would definitely be an invincible force. When the time came, with these 100 Grand Desolate Masters, he would be able to quickly rebuild the Dragon Clan. At that time, the Dragon Clan would still be the strongest existence on this continent. Therefore, he ordered everyone, retreat. Although the Dragon Clan was angry, with the chief's order, they seemed to have sobered up a little. Although they were unwilling, they still slowly retreated. Seeing this, Immortal sneered in his heart. Retreat now. Don't you think it's a little too late? Thinking of this, he flapped his wings and soared into the sky. After circling in the sky once, he was about to dive down to the ground. However, at this moment, an old but powerful voice suddenly came from underground. Bastard and Danruo. In the next moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky without any warning, confronting Immortal from a distance. This person had a pair of black wings behind his back, hovering in the sky. A head of messy white hair fluttered in the wind. He was wearing a black robe without any decorations. He looked slovenly, like a sloppy old man. However, the aura emitted from his body suppressed everyone present. It even far surpassed Immortal. When the great elder below saw this person, he could not help but be surprised. Old chief. When the other Grand Desolate Masters saw this, they were all surprised. It's really the old chief. The old chief is really still alive. That's great, our Dragon Clan is saved. I heard that the old chief had already become a level 5 Grand Desolate Master many years ago. I don't believe that a level 5 Grand Desolate Master can't deal with this huge dragon. When the Chief Lord Long saw this, his eyes were filled with excitement, and his eyes were flickering. He hurriedly lowered his head and half knelt on the ground. Lord Long, lead all the disciples of the Dragon Clan. When he said this, he paused for a moment. How could there be any disciples of the Dragon Clan? More than 200,000 disciples were already dead. His Adam's apple squirmed, and he said with grief and indignation, lead all the remaining disciples of the Dragon Clan to welcome the old chief. All the Grand Desolate Masters of the Dragon Clan also lowered their heads and half knelt on the ground. The remaining disciples of the Dragon Clan welcomed the old chief. However, the old chief did not even look at them. Not only did he not look, the old chief was actually cursing in his heart. Useless trash. Just because you can't kill this kid, you forced me to come out of seclusion. Not only can I not break through again, after coming out of seclusion this time, my lifespan will soon be up. It's all because of you. However, he obviously could not say this in front of Immortal. Moreover, the Dragon Clan was in a life and death situation. As a member of the Dragon Clan, and the old chief of the Dragon Clan, he naturally had the responsibility to stand up and protect the Dragon Clan. At this moment, his eyes were fixed on Immortal. The aura on his body had already reached the peak. Judging from his aura, he was only one step away from becoming a level 6 Grand Desolate Master. A level 6 Grand Desolate Master was almost the peak existence in the entire Flaming Origin continent. His eyes were filled with murderous intent and fury. From his mouth came a voice filled with killing intent. "Kid, you dare to behave atrociously in my dragon clan, die." Chapter 454. The old patriarch of the dragon clan said in a voice filled with killing intent, "Kid, you dare to behave atrociously in my dragon clan? Die." Then, his aura rose again, almost reaching the limit of a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. Seeing this, all the disciples of the dragon clan were secretly delighted. The old patriarch's aura was so strong and terrifying. After that kid transformed into a giant dragon, he was powerful and could fight against a level 1 Grand Desolate Master as a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. However, this was the end of it. It was impossible for him to challenge a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. In fact, they were right. With Emosher's strength, it was naturally impossible for him to challenge a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. If it was so easy to challenge a Grand Desolate Master, there wouldn't be so few Grand Desolate Masters in this world. Moreover, this was a peak level 5 Grand Desolate Master. He was almost the number 1 person in the entire continent. How could Emosher defeat such an existence? However, Emosher still had his trump card. He sneered and let out a dragon's roar, "So what if I behave atrociously?" Then, with a thought, another figure appeared in the sky without any warning. Its 1,500-meter-long body meandered in the sky like a dragon. With the sea dragon clone, what could you do to me if I peed, let alone behave atrociously in the dragon clan? The sea dragon clone was 1,500 meter long and had a diameter of more than 70 meter long. 1/3 of the sky in the Dragon Valley was occupied by this body. The light in the Dragon Valley was much dimmer now. Its scales shone with a dark black luster under the sunlight. On its forehead, there were 2 huge bulges that seemed to be swollen. 4 thick and sharp claws, each of which was like a towering tree. It opened its mouth and let out a roar that seemed to want to swallow everything in the world. "Ayo!" roar. With this roar, all living things within a 500-kilometer radius trembled. When all the disciples of the dragon clan saw this, their expressions changed drastically. Just a moment ago, they thought that their old patriarch was already invincible in this world and could easily kill this brat. But now, compared to this huge creature, their old patriarch seemed so small. The old clan leader of the dragon tribe was also secretly shocked at this moment. This creature's aura was similar to his. But why did he feel an inexplicable sense of fear when facing it from afar? Was it because its body was too big? Impossible. He had lived for almost 1,000 years, and he had seen many creatures that were larger than it. However, there was no creature that could make him feel that kind of fear. Why was this happening? Just as he was secretly astonished, the sea dragon clone had already moved. Its figure flickered as it flew toward the dragon clan's patriarch. Although the dragon clan's clan leader was terrified, he had no way out. If he retreated, the dragon clan would be exterminated. He roared, "You're courting death." At the next moment, a genetic martial art condensed in his right arm. Moreover, the moment his genetic weapon appeared, its edges had already lit up. Clearly, energy had been added to it. However, he didn't shoot out this energy. Instead, he attached it to his genetic martial art to fight. High-level battles often required the most basic fighting methods. The reason why his genetic martial art didn't release energy was because that kind of fighting method wasted too much energy. Moreover, shooting energy from a distance would give the enemy time to dodge. Therefore, this kind of fighting method was far worse than adding energy to the weapon before fighting in close combat. At this moment, he was using this kind of fighting method. His figure flashed and he was already behind the sea dragon clone. His speed was extremely fast. He must have activated his wind attribute talent. When he arrived behind the sea dragon clone, his genetic martial art stabbed fiercely at the back of the sea dragon clone. Crackle, a few ear-piercing sounds were heard. The back of the sea dragon clone rubbed against his genetic martial art, creating a series of sparks. However, that was all. After this series of sparks, he looked at the back of the sea dragon clone. Not to mention being injured, there wasn't even a trace left behind. Seeing this, the dragon clan's patriarch was shocked. What a strong defense! At this moment, the sea dragon clone turned around and whipped its tail over. He hurriedly used his wind attribute energy and dodged quickly. The sea dragon clone's giant tail, which was more than 70 meters thick, narrowly flashed under him. He thought to himself that it was a close call. This guy's speed wasn't slow either. However, before he could finish his thought, he suddenly felt a gust of wind blow past. He was involuntarily swept into the gust of wind. It turned out that the sea dragon clone's huge tail swept past too quickly. The airflow brought him in. This was the disadvantage of being a wind attribute cultivator. His body was too light. Fortunately, as a wind attribute cultivator, he still had a good understanding of the wind. Relying on his experience, he quickly stabilized his body. However, just as he stabilized his body, he found that a huge shadow had already smashed towards him. Bang! Before he could say the verb in his mouth, he was hit by the sea dragon clone's huge tail. It turned out that Immortal knew that this person was a wind attribute cultivator and was extremely fast. It was impossible to hit him with a single blow. Therefore, his first attack was only to stir up a gust of wind and sweep the old guy into the airflow. When he was involuntarily swept in, the sea dragon clone's second wave of attack had already arrived. There was nowhere for him to hide. Boom! The old patriarch of the dragon clan was like a fly that had been hit by a fly swatter as he crashed to the ground. He was smashed into the ground. Crack, crack, cracks began to spread all around him. All the disciples of the dragon clan were aghast when they saw this. They had thought that the old patriarch would definitely be able to destroy that brat. In the end, the old patriarch couldn't withstand a single blow from that giant creature. At this moment, in the huge pit on the ground, the old patriarch's face was covered in blood. Most of the aura on his body had dissipated. He had never dreamed that he, who was almost the #1 person on the continent, would one day be unable to withstand a single blow from a giant creature. At this moment, he was constantly trying to circulate the wind attribute energy in his body. He wanted to escape. Even if he knew that his time was up, even if he escaped today, he wouldn't live for long. However, survival was human instinct. Even he was no exception. However, at this moment, on the sea dragon clone's body, a blood-red tentacle shot over like an arrow. Puff! It pierced into his body. Then, the tentacle retracted. The barbs on the tentacle immediately hooked his body and dragged him into the air. Chapter 455. A tentacle shot out from the body of the sea dragon clone. It dragged the old patriarch of the dragon clan, who was trying to escape, into the air. The old patriarch of the dragon clan wanted to struggle. But soon, he realized that the tentacle had already grown into hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles in his body. They crawled all over his muscles. If he tried to break free by force, his body would be torn apart. At the same time, as these tentacles continued to extend, his body was in intense pain. He kept struggling, and his legs kept trembling. However, this pain didn't last long. At a certain moment, hiss, the tentacles in his body quickly separated, tearing his body into hundreds and thousands of pieces. At this point, the strongest person of the dragon clan, the #1 person on the continent, the old patriarch of the dragon clan, was dead. At the same time, the expressions of everyone in the dragon clan changed drastically. The old patriarch, who they had placed high hopes on, couldn't even last half a minute in front of this huge creature. He was easily torn to pieces. Then, was there any hope for the rest of them to survive? Thinking of this, they all turned to look at the patriarch. Seeing this, the patriarch of the dragon clan shook his head helplessly and closed his eyes in pain. At this moment, he had already seen through it. The dragon clan was finished. The dragon clan, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, was really ruined in his hands. He was the sinner of the dragon clan. Even if he died, he would have no face to see the ancestors of the dragon clan. However, he couldn't just watch the dragon clan be destroyed like this. He glanced at all the dragon clan grand desolate masters and said, "Disciples of the dragon clan, scatter and run. No matter who escapes, don't forget that you are the disciples of the dragon clan. One day, you must revitalize the dragon clan." All the disciples of the dragon clan were stunned when they heard this. They didn't expect that their dragon clan, known as the strongest faction on the continent, would one day have to run away. But under such circumstances, what else could they do but run? Thus, these 100 or so grand desolate masters fled in all directions. However, could they escape? In front of the speed of Emosure and the sea dragon clone, their so-called escape looked like a joke. With a thought from Emosure, more than 50 huge tentacles grew out of the sea dragon clone's body. Each tentacle is like a sharp arrow, piercing towards the bodies of these grand desolate masters. The bodies of the grand desolate masters were very strong. Even the genetic weapons of the desolate masters would not be able to harm them if they did not add energy. But in front of these tentacles, it was like a piece of paper. Puff 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 puff, everyone, including the patriarch and the great elder, was pierced by the tentacles. Moreover, once these tentacles entered their bodies, they would quickly absorb their blood and use the nourishment of this blood to grow roots in their bodies. These roots would crawl all the muscles in their bodies at an extremely fast speed. In the end, if they used too much force, their muscles would be torn apart. It was literally being torn to pieces. Moreover, even if they didn't use any strength, the tentacles would quickly tear them apart. Rip, 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 with the sound of cloth being torn apart, these people's bodies were all torn apart. In that instant, the entire Dragon Valley finally fell completely silent. Apart from the sound of flowing water, there was no other sound. The entire dragon race, the #1 faction on the continent, had been destroyed by Emosure alone. Of course, one could not say that Emosure was the #1 person on the continent just because of this. The flame-beginning continent was huge. 56 states, and each state was much, much larger than the previous Earth. In such a big place, Emosure did not know how many hidden experts there were. However, he knew that after annihilating the Dragon Clan, he had already entered the ranks of the top powerhouses. As long as he was given some more time, when he became a level 10 Desolate Master, the Sea Dragon clone might become a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. At that time, he would truly be standing at the top of the pyramid of the flame-beginning continent. Because no matter how exaggerated it was, there had never been an existence stronger than a Grand Desolate Master on the flame-beginning continent. What kind of realm was stronger than a Grand Desolate Master? No one knew. At this time, Emosure looked at the kill points in his mind. Kill points, 2316001000000. Every Grand Desolate Master killed gave him 10 kill points. Next, if he wanted to get more kill points, he would have to go to those hunting grounds to hunt infected creatures. Otherwise, he could not go on a killing spree all over the continent and kill those desolate masters. After all, although he was a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he had evolved from a human. He still had a human mind. It was impossible for him to go on a killing spree. Next, Emosure went through all of the dragon race's storehouses and treasure vaults. Many things of the dragon race could be used in the base. For example, the dragon race had an exaggerated number of hundreds of millions of crystal source stones. And this was only their inventory. In their Dragon Valley, there were as many as 3 crystal source veins. Emosure had the thought of simply moving the base here. But after thinking about it, he gave up for the time being. The base had just been developed, and the factory and other things had just been built. If he moved now, it would be a waste. However, he could not just leave the 3 crystal source veins to others. Emosure thought about it and left more than 100 virus clones here. These virus clones basically had the strength of a level 5 Desolate Master and a level 5 Long Nian Shi. 100 level 5 Desolate Master and a level 5 Long Nianshi combined were equivalent to the strength of a few Grand Desolate Masters. In the end, Mo put all the things he had plundered into his micro-world. Then, with a thought, he teleported 1,000 kilometers away. Now, everyone in the dragon race had been wiped out. The dragon race's chief, great elder, and their old chief were all dead. Naturally, the spatial restriction could no longer take effect. Mo easily teleported thousands of kilometers away. Then, he found the right direction and flew in the direction of Hunting Island No. 1. 2 days after Mo left, the news gradually spread. There were overwhelming reports on the internet, on TV, and in all kinds of media. Shocking news. Dragon Valley slaughtered, dragon race annihilated. Who wiped out the No. 1 force in one night? Sorry dragon race, Dragon Valley is not Dragon Valley, sorry No. 1 force, you are not enough. These reports were crazily spread among all the media. Everyone's first reaction when they heard the news was disbelief. Scram to the side. Dragon race annihilated? Kid, you must be crazy. I heard that the No. 1 force of the dragon race has 40 to 50 Grand Desolate Masters. Who dares to touch them? 40 to 50. I heard that there are 70 to 80. Whoever dares to touch them is courting death. Chapter 456. After Mo annihilated the Dragon Clan, he left the Dragon Valley and returned to the base. At the same time, the news of the annihilation of the Dragon Valley had spread across the entire continent. The annihilation of the Dragon Valley could be seen everywhere on the internet, television, various news media, and gossip literature. On a certain online forum. The Dragon Valley, which had been established for tens of thousands of years, was annihilated overnight. Who did this? The Dragon Valley is the No. 1 force on the continent. All the other forces could only tremble in fear in front of the Dragon Valley. But now, it has been annihilated. This is unbelievable. I was thinking of visiting the Dragon Clan when I became stronger in a few years. I didn't expect the Dragon Clan to be annihilated. According to reliable sources, the Dragon Clan has more than 70 Grand Desolate Masters and more than 100 Spiritual Psyche Masters. This strength is enough to crush any force on the continent. Now that it has been annihilated, the person who did this must be extremely powerful. In a certain restaurant. People were watching the news report on the television and the aerial footage while eating. On the screen, the entire Dragon Valley had turned blood red. There were no trees, flowers, plants, animals, or humans. This was a stark contrast to the footage of the Dragon Valley in the past. An old man who looked to be in his 60s was shocked. To be able to annihilate the Dragon Valley, that person's strength is simply heaven-defying. Are you kidding? The Dragon Valley has more than 200,000 Dragon Clan members. Is that something that can be annihilated by one person? Someone beside him immediately questioned. The old man in his 60s shook his head slowly. Young man, you know nothing about strength. Logically speaking, it's impossible for anyone to do this. To annihilate all the Dragon Clan members in the Dragon Valley, it would require a very large team. The movement of such a large team is likely to attract attention. But until now, there have been no reports of such a team. This can only mean one thing, that team doesn't exist. So, it can only be someone with heaven-defying strength who annihilated the entire Dragon Clan. When I passed by Hunting Island No. 1, I saw a similar scene. All the creatures on the island were turned into blood-red powder. There was almost no life there. There was a base in the center of Hunting Island No. 1. Out of curiosity, I went there to investigate. Although the people there didn't say much, it could be inferred from their words that they had a very powerful leader. It was their leader who destroyed the rest of the creatures on the first Hunting Island and brought them to the first Hunting Island. Everyone was surprised when they heard this. But I heard that there was a change in the first Hunting Island, and it was taken over by a group of newcomers. The leader of that group of rookies has such powerful strength? The old man shook his head, no one can say for sure. In short, I'm guessing that it's probably the new island master of Hunting Island number 1. In a small city at the border of the Cloud State, Han Jiansheng was sitting on the grass, enjoying the scenery on the other side of the river while drinking wine. At this moment, Han Lubai quickly walked over. Dad, the dragon clan has been exterminated. Han Jiansheng was taken aback. In his eyes, the dragon clan was the most powerful force in the world. Even though he was known to be able to freeze 16 states with a single sword, he was still extremely insignificant in the face of the dragon clan. More than 50 years ago, he had made a trip to the dragon clan. At that time, he could feel that there were no less than 100 grand desolate masters in the dragon clan. How could such a powerful dragon clan be exterminated? It sounded like a joke. However, when he saw the aerial image of the Dragon Valley on Han Lubai's multifunction watch, he finally believed it. Dad, who do you think did it? Han Lubai asked. Han Jiansheng pondered for a moment and replied. I can't think of anyone in this world. However, if I have to name one person, I guess it's only that kid, Mo Sure. Huh? Han Lubai opened her mouth in surprise and shook her head. Dad, when you said that he was the one who destroyed the celestial gold trisect, I reluctantly believed you. But now you're saying that he was the one who destroyed the dragon clan. Isn't that too exaggerated? Even you, a level 2 grand desolate master, can't do it. How could he do it? Han Jiansheng said, on the surface, that guy's strength is only that of a grand desolate master, but in battle, he can often erupt with strength far stronger than a level 1 grand desolate master. And he can transform into a dragon. Most importantly, he can summon a creature that is 1,000 meters long. And that creature's strength far exceeds his own. Han Lubai shook her head again. Even so, it's impossible to destroy the dragon clan. Han Jiansheng nodded. It's indeed impossible. But a moment later, looking at the setting sun, he spoke again slowly. But nothing is impossible when it comes to this kid. Of course, only a few people could speculate that all this was done by Mo Sure. Most people didn't know who had destroyed the dragon clan. The internet was full of wild guesses. Some people even said that only a god could destroy the dragon clan. On the first hunting island, Mo Sure saw this on the internet and smiled faintly. He was actually called a god. This really surprised him. But speaking of God, he was indeed a god in the miniature world. But the miniature world was really too small. It would be interesting if he could upgrade the miniature world to a planet in the future. At the same time, with the improvement of his strength, he felt that the level of the Dragon Palace should also be upgraded. The Dragon Clan had so many grand desolate masters. Although the other powerful forces on the continent weren't as strong as the Dragon Clan, each force should have a few grand desolate masters. The base could only defend against attacks below the Grand Desolate Master level, which was obviously not enough. Thinking of this, Mo Sure said in his mind. System, sign in after destroying the Dragon Clan. The system's voice sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in event, destroy the Pseudo-Dragon Clan. Sign in reward, Dragon Palace upgrade. Mo Sure nodded with a smile. As expected, the Dragon Palace could be upgraded again. It takes 48 hours to upgrade the Dragon Palace. During the upgrade, the defense system of the Dragon Palace cannot be activated. The warning system of the Dragon Palace cannot be activated. Do you want to upgrade? Mo Sure nodded. Upgrade. The next moment, a progress bar appeared in his mind. It showed, upgrade progress 0%. In the next 2 days, Mo Sure was free. Every day, apart from eating and sleeping, he would accompany him around the island. At noon 2 days later, the progress bar in his mind finally reached 100%. Chapter 457. 2 days later, at noon, the progress bar in Mo Sure's mind finally reached 100%. At the same time, a system notification appeared in his mind. Frowny face Dragon Palace successfully upgraded. Upgrade details. 1. Absolute defense. Dragon Palace can withstand any attack from a Grand Desolate Master below level 10, including a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. 2. Follow your heart. After this upgrade, Dragon Palace will be more convenient to move. As long as the Dragon King wills it, Dragon Palace will move to the desired location. 3. Refining platform. After this upgrade, Dragon Palace will have a new refining platform. Anyone below the Grand Desolate Master level would only need 10 days to become a Grand Desolate Master after entering the Desolate Refining Platform. Host cannot use it. Emosure slowly nodded his head as he read. Every one of them was very useful. Absolute defense. In the history of the Flaming Land, no one could invade Dragon Palace. Follow your heart. In the future, no matter where Dragon Palace is, it will be very convenient. The refining platform was even more useful. With the refining platform, Dragon Palace will be able to produce a Grand Desolate Master every 10 days. However, the last sentence in the brackets was a little hurtful. What did it mean that the host could not use it? Originally, he thought that with the refining platform, he could be promoted to Grand Desolate Master after 10 days. However, the host could not use it. What a scam. The system seemed to have felt Emosure's emotions and prompted in his mind frowny face. Although the host cannot use the refining platform, with the refining platform, the host's level can be linked to the number of Grand Desolate Masters produced by the refining platform. What does that mean? Emosure asked. The system replied frowny face. When the refining platform produces 10 Grand Desolate Masters, the host's level will automatically increase by 1. When 100 Grand Desolate Masters are produced, the host's level will increase by 1, and so on. Emosure thought for a while. Producing 1 Grand Desolate Master required 10 days. Producing 10 Grand Desolate Masters required 100 days. 1 level in 100 days was a little slow. If other people knew what Emosure was thinking, they would probably want to kick him to death. Normally, after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, they would need to train hard for 10 years, dozens of years, or even hundreds of years to increase by 1 level. You don't do anything, and you can increase by 1 level in 3 months. You think it's slow? Why don't you just go to heaven? Emosure suddenly had an idea and asked the system, can I move the Dragon Palace into the miniature world? As long as he could move the Dragon Palace to the miniature world, everything there would be under his control. Time was not a problem at all. The system replied frowny face, in the miniature world, you are already an omnipotent god. Do you still need to shorten the time to increase your strength? If that's the case, then I can't. The system poured a bucket of cold water on Emosure. That won't do. The host can only use divine power to increase his strength in the miniature world and cannot be forced into the real world. Emosure could not help but shake his head. The system had seen through it. Since he could not forcefully increase his strength, Emosure did not dwell on it. However, he secretly comforted himself that the increase in his strength was already very abnormal. Don't be too perverted and leave others a way out. As the saying goes, leave a way out for others so that we can meet again in the future. After that, Emosure followed the system's instructions and came to the center of the Dragon Palace. Sure enough, a stone platform had already appeared there. The stone platform was not tall, only about a foot tall. It was also not big, just enough for one person to sit on. Emosure carefully studied it for a while, but could not figure out what the stone platform was made of. He used Dragon's telekinesis to investigate and found nothing special about it. Following the principle of not thinking about things that he did not understand, Emosure immediately called Emma over. Emma had not seen Emosure for a long time. When she saw Emosure, there was a subtle gentleness in her eyes. Emosure did not notice this. She pointed at the black stone platform and said to Emosure, sit on it and see what changes will happen in 10 days. Emma glanced at her son beside her. Emosure naturally knew what she meant and said, don't worry, Happy will take care of your son for these 10 days. Emma was naturally not worried about Emosure, and she was not worried about Happy either. She nodded and sat on the platform. As soon as she sat on it, she felt a majestic energy enter her body from the stone platform. This energy came suddenly and was extremely majestic. She, who was unprepared, was almost unable to bear it. Fortunately, this energy seemed to be limited to a level that she could barely bear. In just a few minutes, the energy she absorbed was more than what she usually absorbed from desolate beasts in a month. Emma could not help but feel happy. Emosure said to her, "Calm your mind and start cultivating." Emma hurriedly nodded, yes. She then calmed her mind and began to exhale and inhale slowly. Emosure could also clearly feel Emma's aura rapidly increasing. Emosure said, "Don't come down during this period. You will know the result in 10 days. Emma was cultivating and did not have time to answer. But her eyebrows twitched slightly, indicating that she understood. Then, Emosure called Happy over and told her to take care of Emma's son for the next 10 days. For the next 10 days, Emosure lived a leisurely and carefree life. With his current strength and the Azure Dragon clone, he was definitely a top-tier expert on the continent, even if he was not invincible. There was also nothing urgent to do. He did not need to seize the time to increase his strength like in the past. So he planned to stay in the Dragon Palace for a few more days to see the effects of the refining platform. 10 days was both slow and fast. Emosure did not seem to realize that 10 days had passed. In these 10 days, Emma had been cultivating on the refining platform. Emosure had already instructed that no one was allowed to approach the refining platform. The others did not know what Emma was doing. But they knew that Emosure's orders were imperial edicts. So in these 10 days, no one dared to approach the refining platform. Even the room where the refining platform was located was not approached by anyone. With Emma's current strength, it was completely possible for her to not eat or drink during cultivation. Naturally, she did not need to excrete. At noon, Emosure brought Emma's son to the refining platform. He opened the demonic dragon's eye and saw that Emma was still a 6th-level desolate hunter. But Emma's aura was much stronger than before. Judging by her aura, she had reached the peak of a 10th-level desolate hunter. Looking at the time, there were still more than 2 minutes to the 10 days. Emosure waited quietly. 2 minutes later. The aura on Emma's body rose again. In just 10 seconds, it was dozens of times stronger than before. This time, the aura rose very quickly and violently. But the time was very short. In just 5 seconds, it stopped. Chapter 458. Emma's aura was rising at an extremely fast speed. In just 5 seconds, it had increased by dozens of times. After 5 seconds, it stopped rising. It began to gradually stabilize. At this time, Emosure looked again with the mystic dragon's eye. Name, Emma, race, blood clan, level 1 Great Desolate Master. Emosure was puzzled. Shouldn't it be a super-evolved blood clan or a super-evolved blood clan? The system's voice came frowny face all humanoid creatures, whether zombies, blood clan, werewolves, or zombies, after reaching the level of a Great Desolate Master, they are called Great Desolate Masters. Emosure nodded. It was easier to remember this. It saved him the trouble of having to calculate the level of a super-evolved blood clan in his mind when he met one. Just like when he was learning English, when he encountered an English word, the meaning of the word didn't appear in his mind first. Instead, he had to translate it into Chinese first, and then he knew what the word meant. Troublesome. It was a lot easier to do this now. Emma opened her eyes at this time. She didn't pay attention to the changes in her body at first. Instead, she got off the refining platform and pulled her son over. She held her son's face to see if he had lost weight these days. Not only did her son not lose weight, he seemed to have gained a bit of weight. She stroked her son's head and said to Happy next to her, "Thank you." Happy shook his head and gestured, "Sister Emma, we're all family, you don't have to say this." Emma nodded, but her eyes were still filled with gratitude. For her, raising her strength to a Great Desolate Master was not as important as taking care of her son for 10 days. After seeing that her son was fine, she noticed the change in her strength. She felt the aura in her body and the surging energy in her body. She looked at her hands in disbelief. Then she looked at Immortal. I was promoted to a great desolate master. Immortal smiled and nodded. Emma was even more in disbelief. While circulating the energy in her body, she said in surprise, 10 days? Immortal nodded again. Emma was even more surprised. Her strength was only equivalent to a level 6 desolate master. Now, in just 10 days, she became a great desolate master. This was a little too exaggerated. But her surprise didn't last long. After all, in front of Immortal, even more ridiculous things had happened. Disregarding everything else, she suspected that the news of the Dragon Clan's annihilation that had spread throughout the continent in the past few days had something to do with Immortal. There were many experts in this world. There were also people stronger than Immortal. But who could destroy the entire Dragon Clan in a single night? Other than Immortal, she couldn't think of anyone else. Thank you, Master. Emma said gratefully. Immortal shook his head and said, call the little monk over. Emma immediately nodded and brought her son to find the little monk. After a while, he found the little monk. Although the little monk had followed Emma here, he kept shaking his head and mumbling to himself. This kind of algorithm, there's a problem. That's right, using the Sorgate's algorithm should be useful. Then, he shook his head. That doesn't seem right either. It seemed that this guy had gone mad. As a desolate hunter, he did not care about cultivation at all. He only cared about mechas. But now that he had reached Immortal's level, he deeply understood that mechas were basically useless in battles between desolate hunters, especially Grand Desolate Masters. He used to think that mechas were the future of the base. So, he did not hesitate to spend a lot of time and energy to equip the base with a large number of mechas. But in battles between desolate hunters and above, mechas were basically live targets. Now, mecha technology in the Flaming Land had reached a bottleneck. It was difficult to improve in a short period of time. Wasting time on mecha was not a rational thing to do. So, Immortal wanted to let the little monk get out of the mecha as soon as possible and embark on the path of cultivation. Monk, sit on it and cultivate. Immortal pointed at the refining platform and said. Hearing this, the little monk shook his head like a baby. No, cultivating is too time-consuming. You must know that wasting time is equivalent to murdering for money. Boss, you're not really thinking of harming me, are you? Amitba, you're too kind. Immortal laughed. With that little money of yours, is it worth it for me to scheme for you? Hearing this, the little monk had a look of disbelief. He tightened his collar and took 2 steps back. Boss, are you thinking of raping me? Immortal glared at him. Get lost. Okay. The little monk said and was about to leave. Immortal was speechless. Sit on it and cultivate for 10 days. Otherwise, you're not allowed to touch mechas anymore. Immortal's words had a hint of hidden meaning. Seeing this, the little monk was slightly stunned. Then, he sat on it reluctantly. But there was still a look of pain between his brows. Obviously, in his opinion, sitting here and cultivating was too much of a waste of time. If he had the time, he might as well study mechas. But since his boss was angry, he did not dare to say anything more. In order to continue studying mechas in the future, he could only endure for now. Immortal was still afraid that the little monk would not be honest, so he said to Emma, watch him. Emma quickly nodded. Yes. Therefore, under Emma's strict supervision, the little monk did not dare to leave for the past 10 days. He could only cultivate there obediently. 10 days later, when Emma said, time is up, the little monk could not wait to jump up. He planned to run back to his workshop and continue studying mechas. Not seeing mechas for 10 days was like not eating or drinking for 10 days. He was already unbearably thirsty. But when he jumped up, his body jumped up. Unexpectedly, his whole body crashed into the roof. He directly crashed through the roof. The little monk was so shocked that he kept shouting in the air. Amitabha, oh my god, Amitabha, F***ck, 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 F***ck. After a while, he finally landed on the ground. He raised his hands and looked at them in astonishment. This is, Emma and the others also came out at this time. Emma's heart was also filled with shock. The little monk had also advanced to a Grand Desolate Master. One must know that the little monk was only a level 1 Desolate Master before. In just 10 days, he advanced to a level 1 Desolate Master. On average, he would advance by 1 level every day. This speed was simply unheard of. In her shock, Emma could not help but answer the little monk's question. You advanced to a Grand Desolate Master. Huh? The little monk scratched his bald head in surprise. Big sister, you are not joking, right? In 10 days, I advanced by a whole realm. Let me tell you, if you lie, you will be going to hell. You have to think thrice before you speak, Amitabha. Emma laughed. Can't you feel it for yourself? The little monk nodded. You are right. Soon after, the energy in his body began to circulate. Chapter 459. When the small monk heard Emma's words, he tried to circulate the energy in his body. After doing so, he immediately shouted, F***ck. He felt that the energy in his body was unprecedentedly abundant. Not only was it abundant, it was even majestic. The energy in his body was like raging waves. Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. After a moment, he felt that the aura in his body far exceeded that of a desolate hunter. He looked at himself in disbelief, then at Emma, and finally at Immortal. Boss, I became a Grand Desolate Master. Immortal smiled and said, yes. The small monk was pleasantly surprised, F***ck, so magical. He turned his head and looked at the black and unremarkable refining platform. Boss, this thing is so powerful. Immortal did not say anything else. Go and call Guojutao over. The small monk nodded, yes, boss. After saying that, he quickly left. However, when he was about to walk out of the workshop, he suddenly thought of something. He turned his head and asked, oh right, did I say, F***ck just now? Immortal asked back, what do you think? The small monk had a face of regret. Sorry master, I said vulgar words again. I deserve to be beaten. After saying that, he slapped his mouth twice and quickly turned around and left. Immortal and Happy looked at each other and smiled. This small monk was really a clown. However, with such a person by their side, their mood would be much better. Next, after another 10 days, Guojutao also successfully became a Grand Desolate Master. 3 Grand Desolate Masters in a month. This matter caused a huge commotion in the entire base. Sigh, did you know? Mr. Mo has a magical platform. If you cultivate on it, you can become a Grand Desolate Master in 10 days. In this month, our base had 3 more Grand Desolate Masters. F***ck, are you serious? Grand Desolate Masters are the top existences in the continent. I heard that the other Grand Desolate Masters are basically old fellows who have cultivated for 300 to 500 years. You said that Mr. Mo can make a Grand Desolate Master in 10 days? That's too scary. Be careful with your words. What do you mean by Mr. Mo can make a Grand Desolate Master in 10 days? Does everyone have the chance to become a Grand Desolate Master? In the entire continent, there were only about 200 Grand Desolate Masters. Previously, when the dragon race was destroyed, more than 100 of them had died. Now, of the billions of people in the base, there were less than 100 Grand Desolate Masters left. Now, the base was able to produce 3 Grand Desolate Masters in a short month. How could these people not be excited? Of course, at the same time that this matter caused a huge commotion, Guojutao had already issued a death order. This matter was strictly prohibited from being spread. Those who violated the order would be killed and their entire families would be sent back to Earth. Perhaps there were people who were not afraid of death, but sending their whole families back to Earth would make them afraid. After living here for more than 2 years, no one wanted to go back to Earth. Whether it was the level of technological development or the strength of the people's cultivation physiques, it was far from what Earth could compare with. What was more, the Dragon Palace was right here. Cultivating in Dragon Palace was already much better than cultivating in the outside world. Now, there was this black stone platform that could allow one to become a Grand Desolate Master within 10 days. In other words, as long as they were patient enough, everyone in their base would definitely be able to reach the Grand Desolate Master level. They had reached the pinnacle of the Flaming Dawn continent. It had to be known that after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, one's lifespan would exceed 500 years. And the higher the level of a Grand Desolate Master, the longer their lifespan would be. Who did not want to live for a few more hundred years? Therefore, they naturally would not be stupid enough to violate the order and spread this matter. Seeing that everything was more or less arranged, Emosher called Guojutao over. He said to Guojutao, "I have to go out for a period of time. Next, you will organize the people in the base to cultivate on the desolate refining platform. Everyone will cultivate for 10 days and everyone will be able to become a Grand Desolate Master." When Guojutao heard Emosher's last sentence, his entire body trembled with excitement. Previously, everyone had guessed that everyone would be able to become a Grand Desolate Master if they cultivated on the platform. However, when it came from Emosher's mouth, it was a different matter. Think about it, if there were more than 50,000 people in the base, and every one of them was a Grand Desolate Master, what kind of scene would that be? Of course, if each person cultivated for 10 days, 50,000 people would need more than 500,000 days. That was more than 1,400 years. By that time, everyone here would be dead. However, this at least gave them hope. Furthermore, they had to plan properly and set up a reward system. Only those who performed well would be able to cultivate on the desolate refining platform. Then, these people would definitely be motivated. This would be beneficial to the base's long-term development. Of course, there were some drawbacks in this, but as long as they planned properly, these drawbacks could be avoided. Furthermore, with Mr. Mo's ability, he might come up with something even more powerful in a few days. It could cultivate faster than the desolate refining platform. Then, everyone would be able to become a Grand Desolate Master. Thinking of this, Guojutao nodded and said respectfully, "Mr. Mo, don't worry and go. I will arrange everything." When Emosher heard this, he scratched his head and said, "Your words sound weird." Guojutao also realized that something was wrong and hurriedly said, "What I mean is, Mr. Mo, don't worry and go. I will take care of everything here for you." Emosher shook his head and said, "It still doesn't feel right." Guojutao coughed dryly and said, "In short, Mr. Mo, don't worry." Emosher stroked his chin and nodded, "Yes, it will be fine this time." After Guojutao left, Emosher first put Happy into the micro world. Now, in the micro world, Emosher was God. He changed this world according to his own wishes. In the sky, there were colorful phoenixes flying. The sun was the three-legged golden crow. A waterfall fell from the sky like the Milky Way. In the sky close to the ground, there were huge white cranes flying slowly. In the lake, there were colorful koi fish swimming. On the grass, there were flowers of different colors. If Happy got tired of these, he could change the world with just a thought. Most importantly, Emosher thought of something. Since he was in this world, he was a godlike existence. The rules of this world were set by him. Did that mean that he could make Happy speak? When he thought of this, his heart could not help but beat wildly. If that was the case, even if Happy could only speak in this world, he would still be very happy. When he thought of this, Emosher could not help but feel nervous. His nervousness stemmed from fear. He was afraid that in this world, as a god, he would not be able to make Happy, who was a heaven speaker, speak. Therefore, he was a little hesitant. After a while, a thought appeared in his mind. in this world, Heaven's speaker could speak. Chapter 460. Swans and phoenixes flew in the sky. Mandarin ducks swam in the lake. Emosure was so nervous that his palms were sweating. He swallowed his saliva and his heart was beating wildly. He had seen many storms and waves. He could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. But at this moment, he was extremely nervous. What if he failed? This was similar to a daring person confessing to someone. What if she didn't accept him? How would they get along in the future? After a while, Emosure gathered his courage and said, "Happy, try to speak." Happy was completely immersed in shock at this magical world. After hearing Emosure's words, she gestured with her hands. "Brother Emo, this world is too magical. It's too beautiful." Emosure knew that Happy had misunderstood his meaning. This feeling was similar to being misunderstood as being a hooligan when he confessed. He hurriedly shook his head. "No, what I mean is that you might be able to speak in this world." Happy was stunned. After a while, she nodded. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She couldn't speak since she was born. Even if she could suddenly speak, she couldn't speak in an instant. Her lips opened and closed and opened again. After a full half a minute, she seemed to have gathered all the strength in her body and stuttered 3 words. "Brother. Emo." Brother. At this moment, Emosure only felt a huge happiness suddenly and fiercely crashed into his heart. Then, it exploded in his heart and completely drowned him. He had thought countless times that Happy would be able to speak. He had also heard Happy call out, "Brother Emo," countless times in his dreams. When Happy really said it, Emosure didn't dare to believe it. He couldn't help but swallow again and say it again. Emosure wasn't the only one who didn't dare to believe it. Happy also didn't dare to believe it. Ever since she was born, she had never opened her mouth to speak. She didn't expect that after more than 20 years, she could finally speak. Her lips opened and closed again. After a while, she said 3 words. "Brother. Emo." This time, although she still stuttered, it was much smoother than the previous time. Happy's eyes were already filled with tears of happiness, and he was so excited that he could not stop crying. "Emo. Big brother. Big brother Emo. Big brother Emo." Emosure nodded. "Happy, you can speak now." She nodded happily. She was happy to have Emosure. With great difficulty, he said, "Happy. Very happy." Emosure couldn't help but have tears in his eyes. After a long time, the two of them finally let go of each other. Emosure immediately dismissed the idea of going to the 20th hunting island. He wanted to teach Happy how to speak in this world. He had never spoken before. Now that he had the ability to speak, he had to practice it slowly. Hence, for the next 5 days, Emosure and Happy stayed in Micro World. The two of them spoke one after another. Usually, Emosure would say something, and Happy would follow suit. Until the right words are said. 5 days later, Happy no longer had any problems in saying some simple sentences. Emosure said to Happy, "My world is called Micro World. It's equivalent to a world independent of the universe. In this world, your brother Emo is a god. In this world, I can make you speak. But in the outside world, you still can't speak." Happy shook his head. "Brother Emo, I'm already very satisfied to be able to speak here. You don't have to worry about me anymore." Emosure nodded gently and pulled Happy over. He said, "What I mean is, we can stay here often in the future. If you have anything to say to me, you can say it here." Happy nodded and said, "Yes, brother Emo, I understand." After a while, Happy suddenly thought of something. "Brother Emo, you can make me speak here. Can you make Sister Emma's son regain his normal intelligence?" Emosure nodded. "I can, but it's only limited to this world." Happy nodded and said, "That's great. Even if it's only in this world, Sister Emma will be very happy." Hence, Happy returned to the real world and found Emma. He gestured with sign language. Sister Emma, you should know that Brother Mo has a miniature world. Emma nodded. I know, it's very beautiful. I really want to live there forever. Happy smiled and gestured. In that world, Brother Mo can make me speak. Emma was stunned, then she said happily, really? That's great. Let's go now. Let me see how you speak. Happy nodded and gestured again. And in that world, Brother Mo can make your son regain the intelligence of a normal human. Hearing this, Emma was stunned again. Then, her heart burned. Really? Let's go now. She followed Emma and her son to Emosure's room. Emosure naturally knew about it. With a thought, the four of them entered the miniature world. When they appeared on the grass beside the lake, Emma looked at the dragons and phoenixes flying in the sky. Then, she looked at the various koi fish swimming in the water. Then, she looked at the huge waterfall that seemed to be hanging upside down from the heavenly palace. She couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Compared to the last time he was here, this place had undergone earth-shattering changes. But soon, her attention shifted from the changes in the environment to her son. She sized up her son carefully, then asked Emosure, Boss, Just as she said this, her son suddenly said, Mom. When Emma heard this word, her whole body trembled. She turned to look at her son, tears welling up in her eyes. How many years had it been since she heard her son call her Mom? She didn't even have any hope of hearing her son call her Mom again in her lifetime. She didn't expect that her son would be able to call her Mom again. When her son saw Emma's tears, he wiped them away with his hand. Mom, I'm fine. You don't have to worry. Emma's tears welled up again. She hugged her son. This was the scene that he had been yearning for day and night. When Happy saw this, a happy smile appeared on his face. After a long time, Emma let go of her son, turned around, and said to Emosure, Boss, thank you. Emosure nodded slightly and said, I always feel a bit awkward when I hear the word boss coming out of your mouth. Just call me Brother Mo. Emma nodded and said, Brother Mo, thank you. Then, she bowed deeply to Emosure with her son. She was grateful to Emosure from the bottom of her heart. Happy, who was beside her, said, Your son can only regain the intelligence of a normal person in this world, but in the outside world. Chapter 461. Happy said softly, Sister Emma, your son can only be like this in this world. Back in the real world. She did not have the heart to finish her sentence. She felt that it was very cruel to say such words to a mother. However, Emma shook her head. It's okay. I'm already very satisfied to be like this here. Speaking of this, she looked at Happy in surprise. This is the first time I've heard you speak. I didn't expect your voice to be so nice. Happy smiled shyly and said, Sister Emma, you're making me a little embarrassed. Emosure said, if you like living here, you can stay here for a long time. Emma quickly nodded. Thank you, OL. Brother Mo, Emma's son, was also very sensible. Thank you. Emosure shook his head. No need to add, elder. Since Happy and Emma liked to stay here, Emosure decided to bring the three of them with him when he went out this time. At the very least, he would be able to eat a hot meal every time he brought them along. Moreover, there would be people to talk to when he was bored. After settling them down, Emosure set off for the 20th hunting island. Now, he needed 1 million kill points to level up. Currently, he only had a little over 236,000 kill points. His goal for this trip to the 20th hunting ground was to obtain as many kill points as possible. Before he set off, he had done some research. In the 20th hunting ground, there were two types of creatures that were the most terrifying. One was the ghouls that mutated from humans after they were infected with the virus. The other was the mutated snakes. In the 20th hunting ground, normal humans only occupied 1/5 of the space. Ghouls and mutated snakes occupied the other 4/5 of the space. Ghouls lived on the rotting corpses of humans. Of course, they did not only eat rotting flesh and did not kill living humans. They would kill living humans and wait for them to rot before eating them. Moreover, these ghouls were very smart. They would not take the initiative to attack humans. Instead, they would often take advantage of the situation when humans were cornered by the mutated snakes. The strength of these snakes and ghouls was equivalent to that of a level 10 desolate hunter. It could be said that they were not a threat to Immortal at all. Moreover, the number of ghouls and snakes was very large. Immortal could easily kill a large number of them. Therefore, to ordinary desolate hunters, the 20th hunting ground, which was known as a forbidden zone, was the best place for Immortal to obtain kill points. The 20th hunting island was relatively far away. It took Immortal 2 days to reach the 20th hunting island. When they arrived at the business hall of hunting island number 20, Immortal probed with his dragon mind. He discovered that the people who came to the 20th hunting island were basically all rank 10 desolate hunters. Clearly, they were here to break through to the Grand Desolate Master level. However, as the 20th hunting ground was extremely dangerous, most of them came in groups. In groups of 3 to 5, each group was made up of level 10 Grand Desolate Masters from the same sect. The sects that could come here were basically the top sects in the entire Flaming Dawn continent. In addition to the business hall, there were also living areas, leisure areas, entertainment areas, and other areas on the 20th hunting island. In these areas, there were quite a few rank 10 hunters. Immortal probed with his dragon mind and found that many of the desolate hunters were talking about the annihilation of the dragon clan. I wonder which super expert annihilated the dragon clan. It has been so many days, and there is no clue at all. Didn't anyone check it out? Are you kidding? To be able to annihilate the dragon clan, his strength is definitely at the top of the Flaming Dawn continent. Who would dare to investigate? Are they looking for death? That's true. If I had such strength, who would dare to get in my way? I would just annihilate them. The few people who were talking all had yearning expressions. Of course, there were also people who reminded him. The continent is not very peaceful recently. Everyone better behave on the continent. Yeah, if that super expert doesn't like it, it will be over. We have been very careful recently. As the second most powerful sect on the continent, the sect master has given a strict order that no disciple is allowed to provoke any person from any sect. Violators will be killed on the spot. Damn, isn't your sect too strict? Sigh, we have no choice. The number 1 faction, the Dragon Clan, has been annihilated. As the number 2 faction, we are also very scared. As they spoke, a trace of fear appeared on their faces. Hearing these words, Immortal could not help but touch his chin. Am I that scary? Next, it was Immortal's turn to line up to buy a ticket. When Immortal went to the other hunting islands for the first time, he was afraid of exposing his identity, so he asked the little monk to get a ticket for him online. Now, Immortal's strength could be said to be among the top of the Flaming Dawn continent. Naturally, he did not need to be afraid of exposing his identity. If he really exposed his identity, it would be these people who should be afraid. There were actually quite a lot of people going to the 20th hunting ground. After all, many people were stuck at rank 10. If they could break through to the Grand Desolate Master level, not only would their strength reach the level of a first-rate expert, but their lifespan would also be extended to 1,000 years. Naturally, all the desolate hunters who had hopes of breaking through to the Grand Desolate Master level would come to try. Immortal did not go to the self-service ticket vending machine to buy a ticket. This was because the automatic ticket vending machine only had 1 ticket per person. There were not many people lining up at the ticket window, so Immortal quickly arrived at the window. The beautiful ticket sales girl at the window had a professional smile on her face as she asked, "Hello. May I know how many people are there?" Immortal replied, "1 person." The ticket sales girl nodded with a smile and said, "1 ticket." Immortal smiled and shook his head. "No, I want to book a ticket for a year." The ticket sales girl was speechless. She was stunned. She had been selling tickets here for 3 years. She often saw experts who went to the 20th hunting ground for a month and came back without resting. They would buy another ticket and enter the 20th hunting ground again. However, she had never heard of someone who could book a ticket for a year. When the surrounding people saw this, although they did not say anything, they were laughing in their hearts. Could this be a country bumpkin from somewhere? Did he know how expensive the tickets were? One ticket cost 2 million. If he bought a ticket for a year, wouldn't it cost 24 million? Was he crazy? Moreover, money was secondary. The most important thing was that the 20th hunting ground was extremely dangerous for desolate hunters. There was a saying in the story, towering giant python. This showed how terrifying the mutated snakes were. Not to mention the ghouls, whose intelligence was about the same as humans. One had to be on tenterhooks after going there for a month. One had to be in a tense state at all times. Therefore, many people would have to rest for a long time after going there for a month. Now, this kid actually wanted to book a ticket for a year. Was he crazy? Chapter 462. The pretty ticket seller was stunned when she heard Immortal say it was for a year. But with her professionalism, she quickly regained her professional smile. She said, "Sir, I have to remind you that the 20th hunting ground is very dangerous. According to the rules of our hunting island, each person can only buy one ticket. After a month, you have to come back and rest for a few days." Immortal shook his head. "No need. I'm in a hurry." The pretty ticket seller continued. "Each ticket costs 2 million, so you'll need 24 million a year. I suggest you, no need. Here's a check for 30 million from Yenshire Bank. You can withdraw cash from any bank." As Immortal spoke, he took out a check. He already knew that these people would make excuses. So it was more practical to pay directly. The surrounding people who had been secretly laughing just now all widened their eyes at this moment. Damn, 30 million just like that. Whose rich kid is this? His family has a mine, right? In fact, they were right. Immortal did have a mine on Hunting Island number 1. But his money did not come from the crystal source veins. It was what he got after he inherited Hunting Island number 1. And this was only a small part of all his assets. After he destroyed the Sky Gold Trisect and the Dragon Clan, he also got a large amount of electronic currency. Although these electronic currencies needed to be verified before they could be used, it was not difficult for the little monk to crack them. So now Immortal was definitely one of the richest people on the continent. Even Immortal himself did not know how much wealth he had now. Seeing this, the female ticket seller's beautiful eyes showed a hint of surprise. But she was still very professional. She regained her smile. She said politely, "Sir, I can't make the decision on this matter. Please wait in the VIP room for a while. I'll get the manager." Immortal nodded. "Okay." Then he turned around and walked toward the VIP room. Seeing this, the people around all shook their heads helplessly. You can really do whatever you want with money. What rules? What rules? They're nothing in front of money. What can we do? If you have money, you can too. When Immortal arrived at the VIP lounge, someone had already brewed a cup of high-quality black tea. Before Immortal could savor it, the manager had already walked in. This was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was plump and looked simple and honest. As soon as he came in, his face was full of smiles. "Honorable sir, what is your name?" Immortal said, "Mr. Emo, we are honored to have you on our Hunting Island 20. Please have a seat. This is the best long-er tea. Please have a taste." Immortal nodded. This manager looked simple and honest. Actually, it was very slippery. However, Immortal did not intend to have too much to do with him. He directly slapped out a check. 30 million for a year. The manager looked at the check in front of him with a smile. "Mr. Emo, you're so cool. The 20th hunting island has always been very straightforward with people who like to be straightforward. Sure. Emosure nodded. That's good. Let's go now. The manager was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Emosure to be so direct and efficient at handling matters at such a young age, without the slightest hesitation. He quickly nodded. Of course. I'll prepare the VIP channel for you. Everyone else will be temporarily suspended. Only you will be teleported. This was a little too high profile. However, there were still many people who needed to be teleported. If Emosure followed the normal procedure, it would probably take more than an hour. Therefore, Emosure nodded and said, okay. The manager said, Mr. Emo, please come with me. Then, he led Emosure to the teleportation hall. When the people around saw that the manager of the 20th hunting island was personally escorting this guest, they all looked at each other. Sure enough, with money, even if you asked a ghost to grind it, the ghost would definitely agree. The plump manager turned back and asked while walking, Mr. Emo, the 20th hunting island is very dangerous. Do you need us to send 2 grand desolate masters to accompany you? Emosure shook his head. No need. Well, okay. While talking, the two arrived at the teleportation hall. The manager had already informed the people in front of the teleportation hall to temporarily suspend the teleportation. Of course, these people were basically disciples of the major sects on the continent. They could not be offended. Therefore, there was compensation for them. Each of them would be given a refund of 100,000 for the entrance fee. Most of these disciples were happy to have their money refunded. Although they were disciples of the major sects, their money did not grow on trees. How could they not be happy that they could save 100,000 yuan by waiting a little longer? Of course, there were also disciples of the major sects who did not lack money. Their faces were full of embarrassment. However, before they left, the elders in their sects had warned them that it was a critical time and they should not cause any trouble. Therefore, they could only endure it for the time being. After Emosure arrived at the teleportation hall, the teleportation was soon activated. He turned into a blue and white ball of light and disappeared from the teleportation hall under the envious and jealous gazes of the others. The manager secretly used his multifunctional watch to check the authenticity of the 30 million yuan check. In the end, he nodded in satisfaction. Then, he smiled at the crowd and said, Everyone, I'm really sorry. The guest just now had some urgent matters to attend to. I'm sorry for wasting everyone's time. When you come back from the 20th hunting ground in a month, your expenses will be waived for the next 3 days. Hearing that, everyone clapped and cheered. Although they did not care about the money, it was naturally good to spend less. The manager was overjoyed and went to report to the island master. He had made a lot of money today. The island master should be very happy. When the island master was happy, many things would be easy to handle. More than 10 minutes after Emosure left, the news of a person spending 30 million yuan for a year spread throughout the entire 20th hunting island. From the managers of the hunting island to the people who came here for training, everyone was amazed. 30 million? Damn, I can't earn that much even if I earn 10 lifetimes. A year's subscription. This is the first time I've heard of a year's subscription in the hunting ground. It seems that guy is not only rich, but also far stronger than ordinary people. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to book a year's subscription in the 20th hunting ground. At the same time, in the island master's office on the 20th hunting island. The island master was studying how to expand the 20th hunting island. The fat manager suddenly walked in excitedly and said, Good news, island master. The island master retracted his gaze from the computer screen and looked up at the fat manager. What's the good news? The fat manager replied, This morning, our turnover exceeded 50 million. 50 million? It's twice as high as usual. The island master was slightly puzzled. In the past, it would be 30 million at most in half a day. How could it suddenly increase by so much? Chapter 463. The owner of the 20th hunting island was puzzled. How could the turnover have doubled all of a sudden? The plump manager replied, "It's a VIP, 30 million for a year." The owner of the 20th hunting island was slightly surprised. "Who is it?" The plump manager replied, "A VIP with the surname Mo." The owner asked again, "Which faction does Chang belong to?" The plump manager shook his head. "I haven't had the time to check." The owner thought for a moment and said, "Check, but don't make too much noise. We have to be careful with such a person." The plump manager nodded. "Understood." With the power of the 20th hunting island, it didn't take too long to check a person's information. In just a few minutes, the information about Mo Sure had been sent to the plump manager's multifunction watch. He quickly opened the information and read it to the owner. Mo Sure, the new owner of the first hunting island. He slaughtered the entire 10th hunting island alone. He killed a member of the dragon clan in seconds and is suspected to have slaughtered the strongest sects in the 16 prefectures, the Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood, and Heavenly Water sects. The plump manager's voice became lower and lower as he read. Finally, he stopped. The owner's eyes widened. Some time ago, he heard that the 10th hunting island had been slaughtered, and it was by a single person. He didn't expect it to be this young man. According to the information, the 10th hunting island had invited no less than 100 hunters. This young man had killed so many desolate hunters by himself. Just how strong was he? The most shocking thing was that he killed a member of the dragon clan in seconds even though he knew that there was a member of the dragon clan present. One had to know that the dragon clan was the strongest faction in the entire Flaming Land back then. He dared to slaughter the dragon clan in front of so many people. This matter was definitely not simple. A few days ago, the entire dragon clan had been slaughtered. Thinking of this, the owner seemed to have discovered a huge secret. This young man with the surname Mo was very likely to be a super expert who had slaughtered the entire dragon clan. Although this sounded ridiculous, nothing was impossible on the Flaming Dawn continent. Moreover, even if he wasn't the one who had slaughtered the dragon clan, the fact that he dared to kill a member of the dragon clan in seconds on the 10th hunting island was enough to prove that he was somehow related to the super expert who had slaughtered the entire dragon clan. Thinking of this, the island master asked the fat manager, "When you received this Mo?" "Island master, just now. You didn't neglect anything, right?" Although he knew that the fat manager always did things flawlessly, he was still very confident in manager Mo. However, this was a matter of great importance, so he had to confirm it again. The fat manager shook his head repeatedly. "Island master, don't worry. I've always been very polite to any guest. Let alone this distinguished guest." After saying that, the fat manager's forehead was already covered in sweat. Although he had done a perfect job just now, he was dealing with a young man who was related to the Dragon Clan, the #1 force on the continent. If there was even the slightest negligence, just thinking about it made him scared. The fat manager wiped the sweat off his forehead without leaving a trace and asked, "Island Lord, should we remind the other people on the island to be careful when they meet Island Lord Mo?" The island master thought for a moment and shook his head. "That's not necessary. If there are too many traces of our involvement in this matter, I'm afraid it will arouse his displeasure. Let nature take its course." If an ordinary person heard the words "let nature take its course," they would probably be a little dumbfounded. What did it mean to let nature take its course? But who was the fat manager? Reading people's minds was his forte. He quickly understood the island master's meaning. In the face of such a powerful existence, anything one did would be in vain. It was better to let nature take its course. As long as one was careful and did not provoke him. As for the others, they could do whatever they wanted. At this moment, Mo Sure had already arrived at the 20th hunting ground. The 20th hunting ground was called the Hell Python Planet. It got its name because there were many kinds of terrifying pythons on the planet. Generally speaking, the creator was fair. Poisonous snakes were not big in size. And the big pythons were basically not poisonous. However, on this planet, due to the deliberate control of the 20th hunting ground, the bigger the python, the more poisonous it was. Take the tax room as an example. The strongest python on this planet was a level 10 mutated wild beast, which was equivalent to a level 10 desolate hunter. However, due to the existence of extremely powerful toxins, their strength was far stronger than a level 10 desolate hunter. Therefore, even a level 10 desolate hunter could only retreat in the face of such a python. At this time, Mo was at the teleportation coordinates. These coordinates were not built in the wilderness. The Hell Python planet was too dangerous. Therefore, the 3 coordinates were all in 3 bases. These 3 bases were specially built on the 20th hunting ground. Around the bases, there were energy shields for defense. And there were all kinds of thermal weapons and super weapons for defense. Once those pythons and ghouls tried to attack the bases, they would be blasted into pieces by these thermal weapons. Of course, after so many years, these pythons and ghouls had learned to be smart. They would not attack these bases rashly. However, once someone came out of the bases, they would use all kinds of methods to kill them. The people who came here for training had not reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master. Therefore, their various abilities were not too outstanding. And those who had reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master would have made great progress in various aspects of their body. Speed, strength, explosive force, agility, and other aspects would be greatly improved. Therefore, it was not too dangerous for a Grand Desolate Master to go to the 21st or 22nd hunting ground. On the contrary, the 20th hunting ground was the most dangerous one. The annual mortality rate was among the top 30 hunting grounds. When Mo walked out of the teleportation coordinates, a middle-aged woman immediately came up to him. Although she looked middle-aged on the surface, she did not make people feel that she was old at all. On the contrary, she made people feel that she was more feminine. Every move of hers could stir a man's heart. She had a friendly smile on her face and said to Mo, "Mr. Mo, welcome, welcome." Mo plundered her memory and checked it. It turned out that she was also a staff member of the 20th hunting ground. She received a message from the manager telling her to carry out her orders well. Mo nodded. The woman introduced herself. "My name is Wei. People here call me Sister Wei. Mr. Mo, you can call me by my name." Mo looked at this woman. She was not so charming, nor so vulgar. But even if she flipped her long hair, it would make a man's heart beat. Of course, compared to happiness, she was not so beautiful and pure.